A lone wolf in a cub's body. The air was rigid and stale that day, the day in which a master took his own student's life. Blood trickled the silver-haired hero's hands as he held his top disciple by his arms, hugging the young man as tears fell from his watery eyes. "Geru, why have you followed the wrong path?" Bang angrily cried out as he looked towards his broken and dead disciple, the only one that he took in more than as a pupil, but as a son. "Why?" he said once again, no longer with anger nor hatred, but with sadness and sorrow. "Stupid disciple, you were supposed to be the one to outlive me, not the other way around. But now, I still could not understand why. Why did you want to become a monster?" Clenching his fists, Bang reminisced his time with the young man in his arms, wanting to remember when did it all go wrong. "That's enough now, Ototo. That's the path he took. We couldn't have known why." Putting his hand on his little brother's shoulder, Bomb kneeled towards Bang as he gestured it's time to go. "There is nothing we could do anymore." With great pain in his heart, Bang slowly lowered Geru's body on the ground as he closed his disciple's eyes, letting go of the boy he took in more than as a student, but as his son. "Bang, Bomb, be ready, something is heading our way. Might be more of those monsters, because I'm sensing a huge moving force coming our way," Genos said as he took his stance, but unbeknownst by them, it was more than just an army, for it's only one. "Centauro," a bird-like monster yelled as a huge centipede popped out the ground, surprising the three S-class heroes. "I may have failed to come here in time, but I won't let any of you leave with your lives. Because if I do, Orochi will kill me," Phoenix Man said to himself as he's pissed on how late he was to capture the hero hunter. With Elder Centipede now above, the High Dragon threat immediately rushed the three, causing great destruction throughout the area, as well as collapsing the earth below the now-dead hunter. Bomb and Genos went and took all the A-class heroes that were incapacitated. For Bang, he tried to reach Geru's body, but was already too late as the ground below took him in, never to be seen again. Currently, at the UA Sports Festival, two students are having a battle of will and strength. Midoriya and Todoroki are at their wits' end, but both different. With Midoriya having exhausted most of his fingers to use one for all, along with his stamina beginning to waver, he now has no choice but to force himself for one last time. May it take a great toll with his body, he will risk it. For he had awakened something far terrifying than him breaking himself with the quirk passed down to him. He awakened something inside of Todoroki, a reason why he wanted to become a hero. Making the half and half teen wake up to reason as he readied to use his left side. Both smiled, for this will be their final attack on each other, even earning silent laughs on both sides. As they sharpen their senses, with only a second of breath, Todoroki is the first to move as he blasted ice towards Midoriya. At the same time, the green-haired boy flicked once again one of his already broken fingers to deflect the attack. As a strong wind pressure was produced with one flick of a finger, so did it worsen the discoloration and vitality of it. Midoriya flinched with pain as he tore himself more and more, but he knew that wasn't the last. As he had deflected Todoroki's blast of ice, then came the second, a fire blast so powerful that for Midoriya to negate it, he needed to use his entire arm to punch through it. The power the two unleashed was far too strong for them to possibly endure and stay alive after it. That Cementos was forced to intervene as he made several walls of thick concrete that pop out inside the stadium, lowering the possible damage it'll cost. As the two forces hit each other, a huge blast of smoke irradiated from the concluding blast, as all that watched hold their breaths for the outcome of the two. There they saw something they could not believe. Midoriya was still standing on his feet as his two arms flail along by gravity. Todoroki, on the other hand, was exhausted as he looked in shock towards Midoriya. He did not expect to see his opponent still standing inside the stadium, as he put all that he got with that attack. But he knows it won't take much more to put Midoriya down, so he expected him to fall down and surrender, to know when he's beat. Yet unbeknownst by many of them, this was no longer the case. "Give up, Midoriya. Both of us know you won't last any further than this," Todoroki yelled towards the green-haired boy as he waited for a response. Nothing. There was literal nothingness that came out of the boy as he just stood there with his head pointed at the floor. "So it is decided then. Todoroki said to himself as he then again used his ice to finally defeat Midoriya to knock him off the stadium. With a flick of his wrist, ice formed twice as big as a grown man as it went towards the green-haired boy. But to everyone's surprise, they could have not believed their eyes on what happened next. The ice was split perfectly in half as the boy is suddenly in a stance that even All Might did not expect to see. Midoriya looked as if he was in a martial artist stance, where his left arm went straight as his right tucked inwards his waist, along with his body lowered. Everyone was surprised at such a revelation, but none could understand how he did such a feat with a bruised and broken body. Inside Midoriya's body, the very essence of the boy is now gone, as a new one took its place. On instinct, the boy's body moved to block the attack that came with such precision and accuracy, making it hard to believe for the audience, seeing him with a battered state. What they don't know, though, is the one that took his place was a monster beyond their wildest dreams. Deku awakened from the blast of ice he sliced in half. "You bastards!" Deku sneered as he woke up in pain with his body slowly, making his stance grow fiercer on instinct. He's pissed, very pissed for whatever the fuck was happening. His eyes blurred as his senses took over, as well as his mind cursing and cursing, for he could not remember much on what happened for him to be in such a place, to be in such a predicament, to be attacked by a monster he does not recall facing. That geezer, he thought to himself, but does not remember much on why. For a time being at least, but for now, he's filled with rage. "Die!" He yelled once more with gruesome ferocity in his tone as he launched himself towards Todoroki. This, causing the teen to stagger for a moment. He could feel it, the change in atmosphere, a fear that's slowly creeping up subconsciously towards the half-and-half hero. Todoroki's control over his body was overwritten as his instincts took over to counter again with ice along with his left side to attack, once more out of retaliation. Todoroki does not know why, but the feeling he was having at that exact moment Midoriya rushed towards him. It felt like he needed to protect himself at all cost. Or he'll die? As his counterattack went almost a centimeter at Garu's face, he spun himself at inhumane speeds, dodging the attack altogether as he closed in Todoroki, saying the following words that Shoto will never forget. "Ryusui Gansai Ken." Water stream rocks smashing fist. With his eyes not even registering the speed of his assailant's attack, Todoroki's entire being was brutalized as seeming blue streams of flurrying attacks were sent all over his body. He could not even retaliate as the force and speed the beating he's getting was going faster and stronger by the moment as his body floated up a foot in the air. His bones breaking as audible cracks were heard throughout the stadium, his flesh slowly tearing as his muscles and organs screamed in pain. Todoroki can't take it much longer as his mind slowly numbs and close in a shutting down, along with his body, still floating in the air by the ferocity of Garu's attack. "I'll die," Todoroki said to himself as he lost consciousness from the ever-unending blows he's witnessing. The majority of the audience gasped in horror as a few of them rushed in to save the young boy, getting his flesh ripped out by what they could only summarize as a villain monster. Cementos and Midnight rushed as fast as they could, but was taken aback as Endeavor intervened. Rage is what radiated out of him as he shot an arrow-like projectile of searing heat towards the boy who's currently beating the life out of his son. "Shoto!" he screamed as he feared for the life of his son. As the approaching arrow of flame came close to Garu, with an inhumane turn, he kneed the ever-living hell out of Endeavor's attack, making it explode as the knockback of it was enough for him to be sent towards the near wall. Garu sneered once more as he felt the entire force of Endeavor's attack. All that was present that day was even more shaken at what happened, more so with Endeavor. That green-haired kid just kneeled the entire force of one of his powerful attacks, Kaku, Shikunekin Jetaban, Flashfire Fist, Jetburn. "Impossible!" Endeavor exclaimed as his gaze hardened at the boy that brutalized his son. The number 2 hero was pissed as he ran towards his son, checking for vital signs as he gazed in anger towards the green-haired boy. "Ra'aha!" Garu roared as he slowly crept out of the wall like a demon coming out of hell's door. Midoriya's classmates alongside the other heroes watching, tensed as they felt chills all over their bodies. Garu's left knee was scorched as his hands now clear with the blood of his opponent's broken and battered body. Midoriya, stop this now, All Might yelled as he arrived after Endeavor, his eyes focused as his fists clenched. Everyone felt it. Two of the top heroes of their world will be fighting a child. But can he even be called a child? Garu dropped himself towards the edge of the stadium as he cleared his eyesight. He looked around, surprising him as his mind instantly realized that he's now in front of a crap ton of heroes. He has no words as his eyesight turned once more at the two bulging heroes in front of. Endeavor, wait, All Might said as Endeavor dashed in with tremendous speed, throwing a punch imbued with hell flame, his quirk. But within a hair's reach, Endeavor could not believe what he was seeing. Garu moved his head with little to no effort from his attack, then proceeding to counter with a punch straight to his face along with a barrage of blue-streamed attacks, only ending with a kick in his stomach. Endeavor was sent flying back towards the other end of the stadium. He could not believe it, even more so than All Might. Endeavor kneeled as the forces of the counterattack he endured were beyond his imagination. When Garu countered him, he felt not just the force of the teen's punch, but also his own throughout the entirety of the barrage. Damn you, Endeavor cursed as he got back up again, only to fall down once more. What the hell? He internally screamed as his legs refused to stand and his body aching in pain, asking for him to stop. Is that all you've got? Garu provoked the man as he took his stance. All that watch was just in complete shock as they didn't know what to do. All Might, on the other hand, had enough and decided to put an end to all of this. I'm sorry, Midoriya, but you left me with no choice. We'll have a long talk after all of this, he said to himself as he vanished from the eyes of those that were watching in shock. With one loud bang, they only saw All Might at the spot where Garu was before, only for All Might to vanish once again. Now with a loud boom from the skies above, then came a boy smashing down the center of the stadium. All Might dropped near, but he was not smiling, nor was he letting his stance down. He was in shock as slowly the people saw his figure. Bruises were seen throughout his body, as well as his right arm having these perfectly circular incisions, slicing his skin as it bled. He was dumbfounded on what his student was capable of, but more on what's happening to him. Coming out from the ground, he was thrown in. Midoriya's body bled more and more as Garu pushed it through its very limits. Garu did not expect the damage he took just by getting hit by the hero in front of him. It was far greater than what he had faced before. Garu's blood now flowing through his entire body, enraging him as he smiled at his new prey, but sadly, it was not meant to be. The other heroes, now out of their shock, went straight towards him as they slowly came in by the 100s. Garu was about to be overwhelmed. No matter how much his blood is flowing for battle, he knows when to back off, as even for him, the number of heroes that are slowly coming in his view is far too many for him to handle. He frowned as his prey will live on another day. Garu then smacked his hands together as he inhaled excess amounts of air, then exhaling it all out as he took a rather different stance from before. He raised his right knee towards his torso as he began to do some kind of breathing again, with his veins popping up all over his body. Garu exhaled once more as he slammed his foot towards the very ground thereon. Garu slammed the floor with such a force that it didn't just break it entirely, but also sending it all high up in the sky, making the dozens upon dozens of heroes to stop at their tracks. With the rubble now turned as his smokescreen, Garu went on all fours as he moved like an animal through the floating rubble of concrete. His movement cannot be even registered by the eyes that look. With such speed, Garu vanished as the floating rubble began to fall towards the ground, leaving all dumbfounded on what the hell just happened. How? All Might said under his breath as he could not imagine how and why did all this happen. Somebody please, get an ambulance. Endeavor yelled as he held his son hardly breathing. Father, Todoroki said as he tried to move his arm. Stay with me, Shoto. Don't you dare die on me now. Endeavor cried out as tears began to fall from his eyes. He was not ready at all to lose his son. Endeavor's cry for help was the very thing that got the other to snap out of their shocks, as heroes begin to call for ambulance as some with quirks that allow healing went towards the father and son. This day will forever be remembered by those that saw, even more by the shadows dwelling in the dark. This day of shock and awe, The day in which a kid named Midoriya single-handedly faced against the two top heroes of the world. The day he almost killed a fellow student. The day Garu took over. The aftermath. It's morning now, after the events that occurred during the annual UA High Festival. Many are practically still tense on what happened, shocked for the most, intrigued for those in the shadows. But none of it compared with the reaction it got from the very school that started it. UA High. From teachers, staff, to even the students. None of them have a clue on why and how it happened. The same goes for pretty much all that watched which are connected to the boy. None of them expecting such things to occur, even more so to his closest friends, family mentor. When Midoriya stood, even after taking the blunt force of Todoroki's attack, they were all surprised but expected that it'll end there. They knew that he can't possibly go any further, if his battered state wasn't already enough to guess that. But still, he went through it all. At first, they were amazed, as Midoriya stood and did some kind of martial arts stance, a thing that is seldom seen in today's quirk-filled society. But still, they knew that the kid won't last any further than this. It was fun and thrilling when it lasted, but one should know one's own limits by now. This was true even for those in the stands, more so with those watching on TV, or more particularly, a mother watching her son. A heart attack was slowly creeping in Inko's heart as she can't do anything to save her child, for this was practically what he wanted. That's what she got from the boy as glimmers of hope shined through his eyes back, then when he told her that he wants to be a hero. Still, she could not bear to watch as her son gets beaten live for everyone to see. Her motherly instincts just wouldn't allow it. "Izuku, my baby, please just yield already." Inko yelled her thoughts at the TV screen, as if her words might be able to reach her boy. "Please, you've already done enough. I beg of you." She cried as she was basically forced to watch on what will happen to her son. These kinds of things are what she meant to the boy, something that a mother would not like to see, something that can dishearten oneself. To see one's own flesh and blood be beaten and broken. She couldn't take it, but there is nothing she could do. Her son was at his wit's end, but the face he gave said otherwise. That was the truth at first, but when the other boy that he's faced with begun to use his other side, Inko's heart stopped as a gigantic blast of searing heat was produced, and it was directed exactly towards Izuku. She bit her fingers as tears and cold sweat flowed out of her body. Inko couldn't take it anymore. "Please, I beg you, stop," she yelled, but to no avail. When the act was done and smoke covered the stadium, everyone was shocked at such destruction that was made by these kids, but it was only when the smoke cleared that they started to clear their throats. Midoriya was still standing, even after such an attack, but it was clear that he couldn't possibly be able to move any longer, as his body took a considerable amount of damage. Inko's eyes just widened as she saw her son's state. No, 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 no. My baby boy, no. She thought it would be over and the match would have already stopped there, but she was wrong as her son stood. "No more, Izuku. No more." With half a minute passing by, they all knew that the kid can't go on any further and he should just yield and concede. He already did good and is worthy to be a hero, but to force oneself. "Young Midoriya, it's time to stand down. You already did well," All Might said as a mixture of pride and sadness was spiraling out of him. After a couple more seconds passed, the match was still going on, and it seems that Midoriya won't fall and concede, so there was nothing Todoroki could do but to push him off the arena. To finish it all, for there was no more point to it. He already won. With a flick of his right hand, he attacked for the last time. Literally. The audience of the bout could only gasp at what happened next, earning cold sweats and an everlasting impression of what kind of a person is this green-haired boy. "You bastards," he screamed as he sliced perfectly in half, the attack that was meant to end the match. The atmosphere on that point on was something that no one would like to feel ever again. Death. Death was what it screamed as it radiated out of the green-haired boy. It was not the same at that point on. Everyone's eyes just kept on widening and widening as the shock and awe kept on increasing and increasing. The boy was no longer the same person they saw and knew. He was a monster. With the shocking revelation and the ever blood-curdling event that occurred, the boy known as Izuku Midoriya became something that went beyond the odds, even going to the point of disapproving reality itself, the reality of one's own limits. on Inko's view as her son almost murdered the other boy he was fighting with. She felt the tightening of her heart more and more. Her emotions, feelings, and thoughts were conflicted as the sight of her son becoming a murderer slowly crept in her mind. This isn't the young boy she raised. This isn't the same boy that smiled with hope. This isn't her boy anymore, and more so when the two top heroes intervened his onslaught of despair. "Who are you?" With her heart aching each second, as her eyes overflowed with tears. The realization of the boy who was now fighting his favored and loved hero. The realization of the sudden change of self. Inko's mind almost went blank in fear, as her instincts told her that the boy she knew was now gone, and the one in her boy's body is now a heinous and evil man. Silence was the only thing left that came from all of them, starting from his mother along with the friends and acquaintances he made, towards the people that watched in shock. When Garu took over, when he almost killed Shoto, when he fought with Endeavor, and even more so with All Might himself. Just who was he? The boy in green hair, the boy named Midoriya, for this point on. He will be remembered in fear. Currently, within the confines of the number one hero's home. What will you do now, Toshinori? A certain old hero asked as the supposed inheritor of One for All is nowhere to be seen. I don't know, but there is something I have to tell you. Sensei, with a heavy heart bearing down on All Might's entire being. This certified the old hero on the gravity of what he's about to say. Young Midoriya, All Might was lost of words at what happened that day, but he knew something far sinister was happening. For on that day, he felt as if the bond of he and Midoriya was severed, the connection they had from One for All. The inheritor of One for All might no longer be with us. Sensei, Sir Gran Torino, the bond between One for All has been severed. No, but how? With a shocked face, Gran Torino questioned the absurdity of what All Might said. I felt it. It was like a sudden burst of energy that just went back towards me. My strength, my vitality, everything was hurtled back towards me. All Might scorned it as his mind could only think of one reason for the sudden increase of his feats once again. That boy with the green hair. The one that fought not just me, but Endeavor as well in what looks to be with ease. He is no longer Izuku Midoriya. I'm afraid it's someone else, and the only person that I could think of being responsible for this is him, with anger and frustration seeping out of the number one hero. He clenched his fist as the thought of All for One, etching at his mind again, made him enrage. Gran Torino could only be dumbfounded as the mere thought of an ancient evil that's still alive. Fear begun to run through the old hero's core, as the distant memories of that evil were still prevalent within his mind. Impossible. I know, but with the turn of events that happened, even earlier on, it all just points out with him. There are no other persons than a selected few that know about One for All, and that includes him. All Might responded about the possibility of the impossible. With rather unsettling conjunction, Gran Torino doubted the thought, but was terrified of it still. Hey now, let's not get rash here with conclusions all of the sudden. If it is him, then how come One for All made it back to you? We know he is the very reason that One for All exists, but isn't just counterproductive to let it all go back to you? If All for One is still alive, something like this is completely out of character for him, is it not? That is true. If that ancient evil did take back the quirk he has given long ago, he would not let it go back towards All Might. But that's not the case at this point in time. I could agree to that. With a slight nod, All Might have agreed to that fact. But I do think that we should look more in depth about this, for he at the same time is that hard to get. He's cunning, and I think that this is all part of his plan. Starting from USJ. USJ? Ah, you told me about that not long ago. So what of it? Is it about that Nomu person and the League of Villains? How do they connect with All for One? Gran Torino questioned, for he doubted that such outlandish and out-of-the-blue moves like the attack on USJ was All for One's plan. No, he's far too smart and collective when he moves. So I doubt that he planned such a stupid ploy. Gran Torino almost got it all right, but he's missing a few more information. For it was not really his plan, but it's his successor's, Shigaraki's. He's just basically letting the boy make do with what he has been given, so that his successor will learn. That's the plan at least. With that, All Might started to say about the topic. Yes, starting from that Nomo, I just got the news from Naomeso about him, or should I say, about it. Gran Torino was perplexed about that statement, so he questioned, "What do you mean by it?" All Might clarified with the following statements. That thing was once human, but its genetic structure was manipulated heavily, having multiple DNAs of other people that went missing without a trace, then having their own quirks. That's just impossible, even with getting other people's DNA. The process of passing down quirks like that has not even been successfully done. Even our current scientists all around the globe have yet to do such feat. Hell, even Endeavor heavily invested in such, just to match you. But it was said that every attempt failed. Gran Torino interjected. And that's basically it. If even in today's quirk-filled society, where science has advanced the same as quirks, if even with all the knowledge we have in our world today, has not even come up of a successful way to pass down quirks using genetic engineering, like passing one's DNA to another, who do you think is able that can do such a thing? To give multiple quirks on one being, and to take it as well on a breath's notice. Gran Torino kept quiet as the realization sets in. All Might was right about that. There is only one person that could do such feats like that. Seeing his sensei's silence as his answer, All Might started to conclude his point. It's all for one, no matter how we look into it. With a bit of heaviness on the old hero's tone, he asked about the other part. Then if that's so, how about the League of Villains? What do those fools have that correlates with him? Now about the League of Villains. It is currently in control by a self-destructive and unstable kid known as Shigaraki. There are no known documents of the kid, but as far as we know, he is the one that's supposed to be in control of the League of Villains. All Might stopped as Gran Torino added his thought. So a kid controls it, Humph. But we know that isn't true because how could just a kid like that be able to achieve such things without help? Exactly. To have the resources to create and make do to beings like that Nomu, to have other villains come with him, no matter how unstable he is. Those are exactly my point, Sensei, that it all leads to all for one himself. With a grim look and a deep sigh, Gran Torino could only accept the reasoning of it. TSK. Then what about their connection with that kid? Midoriya, was it? Why take him at that point, and how did they know that he's your supposed successor? A good question, which needed to be answered. That's the thing. It isn't far-fetched, but I assume that the League of Villains, or All for One to be exact, got himself a few persons he trusts that may have a telepathic quirk that enables them to know about the secrets of One for All inside young Midoriya's head, allowing them to know that he's the next successor. That, and another is having a subordinate with a quirk that's capable of either changing one's being or mind control, which led to them taking young Midoriya's body. Yes, that could be considered. But there is another thing that bothers me, Tashinori. With a bit of rasp in the old hero's voice, he raised his index finger signifying one major problem with All Might's statement. What is it? All Might asked. I get it. That mind control isn't far-fetched, same as telepathic quirks. But that doesn't answer the fact that the kid just handed it with the two of you. There must be more than that, don't you think? I don't want to doubt you, Tashinori, but if you said that you felt like your vitality went back up and the bonds between you and that kid have been severed, then how the hell is he able to not just fight one of the top 10 heroes here, but to also go toe-to-toe with you? With that, All Might could just touch his temple as he tries to find an answer for his sensei's question. But, think as he may, it's sadly not possible to think of how, having only speculations as answers with very little information. All Might could only bow his head in disappointment, not having an answer. You're right about that, Sensei, but as it stands now, I don't have a clue on how that person made do with young Midoriya's body, on how he was able to fight us off, even with such a state. Clenching his fist, the #1 hero swears to find out how and why such a thing was possible. Shame then. Hey Tashinori, could you tell me more on what happened when you two fought? You said that he almost took you two on easily. What do you mean by that? Gran Torino asked to know the full extent of the kid's prowess. First off, just to be clear, I don't know how young Midoriya's body could do such feats, but I do know it's not because of One for All. When Endeavor made his move, Mito no villain, monster, took him out with such skill that you wouldn't believe your eyes. Even more so if you get a chance to face off with him. It still shakes me to my inner core, those movements he did, and with a speed comparable as of my own, and the form of strength it dished out. Even with one for all, I'm sure such a thing is not possible, and I'm more than confident that young Midoriya does not have the skill set to do such feats. In all honesty, that is true. Midoriya's body was already beyond its limits when Garu took over. At the same time, his body having already been beaten and battered by not just Endeavor's initial blast, but also with All Might's interjection towards him. It's strange that when Garu is now in control, all of it just seems to not matter. Is it possible that Midoriya's body itself is changing like Garu's? Time will tell. Anyway, digressing back with All Might's hefty words on the topic. But that's not the thing that really bothers me, Sensei. With great dread in his tone, Gran Torino could clearly hear and see the severity of All Might's situation when he fought with Midoriya. Spit it out, then Tashinori. Tell me, so that burden of yours might lessen. Nothing like a talk can help with that. With a forced smile, the old hero wanted All Might to lighten up for a bit, even if it's just a little. Losing one's successor was already hard, but something worse than that. It's worrying, to say the least. Thank you, Sensei. To get it straight with you, what bothers me is when I first made my move towards young Midoriya. It was at that point onwards, my whole being refused to believe something so outlandish. All Might shouted his frustration, only to correct himself back, for such a reaction won't help to further his thoughts towards his sensei. What is it then? Gran Torino asked with worry on his face. You let me punch him? I know it might seem to be full of CR*P, but if it were you, I know you'll understand why. It's like he was observing me like prey, as my instincts just went wild at that point on, until we reached towards the sky with our exchange of blows. With a gulp, All Might continued to express his experience fighting with Midoriya. Many did not see it, for at that point, I was already reaching beyond 100%. But to put it bluntly, I was already going farther beyond what the eye could see, but his speed, his reactions, his tendency, his attacks. No, more particularly, his counterattacks were ungodly. Not to mention the combination of such techniques and skill. It must have only taken him a couple of more hits from me to memorize my moves. And that was all done subconsciously by him. All Might shouted once more, as the absurdity of it all wouldn't allow any other reactions to come out of him. What? The old hero was shocked and baffled by the last statement that his stupid disciple said. What do you mean subconsciously? Are you going senile just like me? Such a thing is not possible, especially from a quirkless boy, is he not? All Might could only nod as he continued. I agree, but all the answer that I could give you is the same that I said earlier. If you were their sensei, even you would say what I have said. The last punch that I have thrown against him proves it. Reminiscing back at it, All Might's stomach could only churn as he reminds himself of what he saw. That final blow was supposed to get me an upper hand, putting all my effort into it, to stop the fight as soon as possible. All Might's right arm begun to shake as he continued. It's because the feeling of it continuing further than it already had. It scares me. Gran Torino could only open his eyes wide on what All Might said. Him? Scared? Impossible. For the first time in ages since he was defeated, I felt fear. It's like I was fighting neither a person nor a villain, but a monster of all things. But the fact that my entire being wanted to stop it on that point on does not lie. With a heavy sigh, All Might looked straight in the eyes of his sensei, sharpening as the seriousness of it became more and more apparent than it already is. It felt like he can and will surpass me at that point if I didn't end it there, but he knew what I was planning to do. I saw him as he took in more air towards his lungs as I swung my right fist towards his being. On that point on, his eyes said it all. As he breathed out the air he took in, with a fluid motion, he deliberately met his own fist with mine, and this is the damage it has done. Taking off the bandage on his right arm, Gran Torino gawked at the sight of such a wound. How is that possible? The old hero asked in bewilderment. I don't know, but it must be that person that took young Midoriya's body. He might also have a quirk that allows him to carry it towards Midoriya, but it's the speed, the strength, the skill, and most importantly, the technique he did which troubles me the most. And this is the proof of it. Raising his right arm as the bandages slowly fall down the floor. An almost perfect spiral of torn flesh ran from All Might's fingertips towards his shoulder. It'll heal, but Recovery Girl told me that the incisions it has caused, with such intricacies and the precision and accuracy of this wound, She couldn't believe that it has even almost reached the bone of my arm. All Might snickered with an ever-present cold sweat on what Recovery Girl stated to him. Terrifying. Are you sure this is still a kid? Even though brainwash, or whatever it may be. It's just not possible. He's like a monster, is he not? Gran Torino asked out of compulsion as the thought of such a quirkless kid was able to do such a thing. Brainwashed or not, it's just too unworldly to comprehend. With a sigh, All Might could only furrow as he has no more to say about the topic. Such turn of events was already too much for him, but to further analyze it more. It's just absurd and impossible for such a thing to happen, but the reality of it all has already shown itself towards him. He can no longer deny that fact. As Gran Torino finally cooled off, he asked of All Might once again, "What now, Toshinori? What will you do? Or more particularly, what are we supposed to do with all of this?" All Might pinch his temple as reminiscence again about certain things connected with Midoriya, one for all and all for one. For as he said once to the green-haired boy, only when he fully accepts the power of one for all shall it be granted to his being, but if he did not, then it could only mean one thing. The ties that were knotted between them with one for all were no longer connected. And the only one capable is that person in the shadows. All for one. All Might scorned once more that the ancient evil in the dark was the reason for all of this. If there is one thing that's certain, Sensei, I'll save young Midoriya. No matter what. You can count on it. With that, All Might stood as he looked onwards to UA High, while Gran Torino's expression eased a bit. To see him like this once again. No matter what, Toshinori, I'll be there for you, and with you always. As I promised on that day so long ago. On another place, though, at the Mosudafu General Hospital, Shoto Todoroki's brother and sister have currently visited. Will he survive? Shoto's sister, Fuyumi Todoroki, asked the doc about his condition. The doctor was old, and although being in such a state of age, he's far above with experience and skill compared to the normal Quirk given doctors of today. The ashen-haired doc then took in some air and out as with a bit of hesitation, he answered the question given to him truthfully. "Dear, all I could say is that your brother barely survived the ordeal he had undertaken. And to be honest with you, I'm afraid that the level of brutality the young lad has taken is far more than what we could have expected." "What do you mean?" Shoto's brother, Natsuo Todoroki, was the one to ask with great fear and stress in his voice. "The state of his body when we first looked at it. We weren't able to use much of any healing-related quirk on him straight away. Take Recovery Girl as an example. She has the best possible quirk to be used with these kinds of injuries, but even with her along with us, we cannot just use it without precautions." The doc gave emphasis on precautions as to entail its importance. "We looked first at his state, and as we looked, some of my newer colleagues were willing to just wait for the boy to heal by normal means. If it were just broken bones and a few tears here and there, they can just cover it up and do the basic procedures with such injuries. It was already common for heroes to be hurt, so it's normal for them to act as so. And after all, that, when he's ready, Recovery Girl will do the rest. But those are fool's thoughts, which is why I reprimand all of them." With a flick of a finger, the doctor then showed a rather unsettling image for them to see. The bones of Shoto's body, its state, its form, then came his flesh. If seeing the outer wounds was already bad enough, then came the inner ones, which were the worst of it. As you all can see, those fools failed to visualize just how grievous was young Shoto's state. Really, having a mindset of quirks doing all the job is just foolish. They don't make doctors of my caliber anymore. The doc could only furrow his brows on that thought. Anyhow, the damage his body took was a nightmare to see. Mr. Endeavor told me about the incident that happened, about the brutality and barbarity of what young Shoto had endured. But the more I look at it, the more it cleared to be less of that. "What do you mean, Doc? Isn't this just as he said? I mean, look at him. Look at my little brother. This is nothing less than barbarity, is it not?" Natsuo angrily said. "To you, boy, it is. But to me, it isn't." The doc cleared. "Stop being cryptic and just tell us already," Fuyumi demanded, not wanting the conversation to sway out of the main point. "Don't worry, I was getting to that. Ahem. So, let's start with the injuries young Shoto has undertaken. First off, all of the outer injuries present isn't just done without thought. though the brutality and severity are also present with it. The way it's been dished out to the lad isn't. To clear things, I mean that each blow was calculated, precise, and deliberate, which is very concerning. What do you mean by that? The two questioned. Looking at the outer side of the injury, we can't really see much of what I meant, but if we look deeper, the doc then changes the visualized image he created to see the inner wounds of Shoto. Let's start with this first. The doc pointed out the major muscles of Shoto. The tissues along with all these muscles are torn, but not in a way we could have expected. Unlike with normal bruises, punctures, and incisions that may come from combat, these wounds are far more than that. He then specified more on the upper torso muscles of Shoto. Taking an in-depth look at his body, it's clear that most of the damage is allocated toward young Shoto's upper body parts, but the main concern we should look at is how much it has been wounded. This might sound crazy, but the way young Shoto was beaten is beyond anything that I have seen through all my years of experience in this matter. All that I can say is that his muscles were beaten to the point that even with the most potent anesthesia in the world that has been injected for the young lad's sake, even that is ineffective. It's like the barrage of attacks that was done unto him was meant to not just maim, but to also cause pain in a way that even with the slightest of touches, it'll start to hurt like hell. That's just what? Just how? Natsuo asked in confusion. Let's just say that it must be the effects of the quirk of his assailant. Even unconscious, young Shoto's body still reacted to the pain of the surgery we did, even with anesthesia. It was troublesome, and that's just the tip of the iceberg of young Shoto's predicament. The two gulped at what the doc's mouth spewed out. Those were just the pectoral muscles. How about his other ones? The doc then proceeded to show the state of Shoto's arms. I do say, though, it's a miracle that he endured this much, and to be honest, young Shoto would really become a great hero one day because of this. The two siblings were then shocked when they saw it. If it isn't with his quick thinking and instincts that helped him survive such massacre of an assault, he wouldn't be breathing here. The doc continued. To answer a probable question you two would ask, no, I'm afraid that it might take years for it to fully heal. Even with the help of Recovery Girl, the tendons that connect with the muscles, the nerve endings towards his arms to hand, its bones. We were forced in a corner to do this, but it's needed to be done. The doc then carefully showed Shoto's bare arms. When the two got a clearer look at it, Shoto's sister almost vomited as she tried to gasp for air, while his brother stood still as cold sweat dripped down from him. To see such things, the way their little brother's arms were twisted and angled in forms too gruesome to state, as most of its bones were broken and smashed, while some even pierced the inside out of his skin. Stop, please. We can't, doc. Natsuo was the only one capable to talk between the two, as Fuyumi could only close her eyes as it teared up from such a sight, along with her heart increasing its beats from the shock and anxiety it caused. I know it's hard to look at, but you two need to know. The doc then pointed Shoto's hands. You two can clearly see it, right? Even when he was beaten to near death, he still managed to use his quirk to shield some of the damage, even if it caused his arms. He tried his best until the end, just to stay alive. And if you two are already disheartened by this, what more if we continue? Your brother here needs both of you to be strong for him. I may be just a doc, but if there is one thing that I know, people that experience things like this will need their family the most. Doc made it clear for the two, and judging by his expression, he looks as if he knows the horror of such things to happen with people in this condition. The two siblings could only move their emotions aside, for the doc was right. They need to be strong and to be there with their young brother. Seeing the two's reaction, the doc fixed himself for a bit, then continued. Ahem. Sorry for the small sermon, but if all things are considered, you two should be ready for the next things that I'll show you. The more that I'm able to explain to you two about his condition, the better it is for his long-term recovery. For each information is vital because strict guidelines should be followed concerning his health after his discharge of the hospital. Plus, one thing is certain, he'll likely have PTSD once he recovered, so better to listen well. The two nodded with a newfound conviction for their youngest brother. Doc, we understood now, but why only the two of us? Though he's too hard of a father, Endeavor should also be informed of this, is he not? Fuyumi was the one to ask, wanting to know why it's only them. To answer that, I have already gone and talked with Mr. Todoroki about this. Let's just say that I'm more at ease with you two taking care of young Shoto. As for Mr. Number 2 hero though, I can't say much, but he went furious and I think you two should know what happened next, right? Yes. Both of them confirmed. Great. Now that's out of the way. Let's get back to what I was saying earlier. I have now shown you two about your brother's condition on the outside of things. The inside though, just be ready. The doc then changes the image he created once again, changing the image to see just the tendons, nerves, and bones of Shoto. If the eyes of the two siblings were already widened enough from earlier, now it's more so. God help our brother, Natsuo said under his breath. It's brutal, yes, but it's also done with deliberation and precision. The doc then pointed out the joints and tendons along with it. As we can see here, each attack, though on the outside looks animalistic and all over, but on the inside, this is where we could see just what kind of master combatant he fought with. No way. But how? Isn't he just a kid, the same as Shoto? There is no way that this is possible. Natsuo exclaimed his thoughts. We know, along with some kind of a quirk to render such pain that lasts till the end, this one took the cake. It's already scary to know that this was done by a kid the same as young Shoto, but to actually see his work. It's beyond us, along with the same kid fighting with the two top heroes the world has ever seen. The doc then sat for a moment as he pinched his temple. All of it is deliberate. All of the strikes that were done were pinpointed most on those critical joints and tendons that allow movement and overall locomotion. Not just that though, but if we are to look at the nerves and bones, it's just unthinkable that this is even possible. Young Shoto's nerve path that connected with his sense of touch was all severed as the other nerve endings swelled from the damage. Then came his bones. Most shattered like glass, some pulverized. With a deep breath, the doc stood once more as he changes the image once again. All in all, this will undoubtedly cause severe trauma, stress, fear, insanity, and many more symptoms. It's almost the same as those back in my day when I was in the field. War against terror and such. Soldiers that got captured and tortured, then saved and sent to me. That's how I think I could compare young Shoto's state. With a breath, the doc could only reminiscence the horror he witnessed those days. All of them were given hell, just like young Shoto. And I'm really afraid for his future. Compared to those soldiers, Shoto is just a kid, a teen to be exact. Things like this, it should not be witnessed to anyone. Then with a wave of his hand, the image which the doc created was then removed from their sights. What will happen now, doc? If it really is this severe, what can we do for Shoto? Fuyumi asked with worry engulfing her heart. Pray for his sake. As of now, he'll need to rest, then when time comes, we'll get Recovery Girl to do the rest. Other than that, just be there with him. Young Shoto will need you both at the end of this. The doc then proceeded to leave the two alone with their youngest brother in bed. At the Bakugo household. Deku. This was the only thought that came out of a certain blonde and combustive teen that day on 4th. Bakugo was in deep thought from all that happened that day. Was it I? He questioned himself as to find out the reason for Midoriya's sudden change of behavior. No, it's impossible. No one could change just like that. Or, Bakugo gritted his teeth as he spat out his toothbrush and then begun to slam his head on the wall. Stop. What the hell are you doing there? Stop it. His mom screamed downstairs as he was basically making a ruckus once again in their home. With a breath, Bakugo calmed himself as he recollected on what happened that day. That was not Deku. I'm sure of it. Then with another breath, Bakugo has now snapped out of his deep thoughts as he stepped on the shower while yelling on the top of his lungs. Die germs. He scrubbed his body tenfold as his mother came busting in the bathroom. I said to fucking stop. What the hell? Get out of here, old hot dash smack. Finish up and go to school already. Time went on that day as the students from all courses at UA High got the chance to talk about the events that have occurred yesterday, but none of them compared with Class 1A's reaction. Class 1A is usually full of noise and an ever-engaging happy atmosphere for most of its time in UA High, but today isn't one of those days. Like entering a funeral, that's exactly the case today. As if it isn't bad already because of what happened yesterday, then came the news on one of their companions currently residing in Yuzutafu General Hospital. Todoroki, Shoto is currently in a temporary coma because of the stress and shock he was forced to endure, both figuratively and literally. The news of this spread like wildfire as tension and unease skyrocketed within the entire class. Knowing the forces that Midoriya can do with his quirk was scary enough, but to use it relentlessly towards one of their own. They still could not believe it, as the majority of them didn't think Midoriya is capable of such an act. All were practically banging their minds on it and thinking of the possibilities on what could have caused such an uproar within Midoriya's being. When he suddenly turned into this pseudo-villain out of nowhere was shocking enough for all of them, but it was Uraraka, Ida, Tsu, and surprisingly, Bakugo that got affected by this the most. In Uraraka's case, it was when she saw the entirety of the savagery and inhumanity of what Izuku did to Shoto. What's more, is that when Deku, the boy she thought she knew, turned into this animalistic beast of rage, this villainous-like embodiment he became, this monster. It felt like daggers were thrown at her heart as the feeling of pain, anxiety, and fear grew in her being. "That's not Deku," Uraraka said softly as her features show off the likes of a saddened and hope-deprived maiden. Her eyes showing nothing but pain from her thoughts all throughout that day as those beside her gently comfort her for what she's currently undergoing. Being by her side along with Tsu, the two heard what Uraraka said as they come and comfort her. "You're right about that, Uraraka. That is not the Deku we knew," Ida said as he put his hand on her shoulders, trying to give a sense of ease to her. "Definitely, Karo." Tsu agreed with the two as she went close to Uraraka, giving all her support. "It must have been the work of a villain, Karo. There is no way that Midoriya could do such a thing," she restated, clearing a bit of Uraraka's unease. "Thank you, Ida-tsu," she softly said. On the other side of the room, though, Bakugo's eyes sharpened like a hawk as his stature while sitting, emits this sense of seriousness and irritation, signaling for those that are near to back off as his mind, try as he may, can't keep his thoughts off of Deku as he tried to reason out probable causes on what happened that day. While the entire class was already in hard thoughts about it, none even realized that their homeroom teacher is already inside the classroom. Shocked on suddenly realizing their teacher was already there, the majority of them hurried in their seats as they all greeted the mummified teacher. Sensei erased her head. "Good morning, sir." Seeing their startled state, Aisawa could only gush out a breath, knowing the reason why they're all this tense. "All right, enough of the formalities, all of you. For today we're going to discuss a certain topic that deserves to be taken care of. And before any of you ask, yes, it's about those two, Izuku Midoriya and Shoto Todoroki. So I don't want any of you to talk until I'm done, understood?" With that, the class put all their ears towards their teacher. We'll talk first about Todoroki, for he's the one that we got a lot more information for the time being. With a cough, Aisawa took out a note within his bandages. "Recovery girl gave me this. It says here that Shoto Todoroki is currently in a coma, though it's only partially, and he's expected to gain his consciousness soon, though that's not the important thing we should know about. It already spread like wildfire with that part, but what hasn't yet is this." Aisawa then took another thing out of his bandages. It was a picture this time. "I just expect that all of you to keep a tight lid on this, for I'm only doing this because all of you deserve to know, being his friend and classmates and all." The mummified hero then showed the picture towards the entire class, showing an image of Todoroki's current state. "This is a picture that they're willing to give, just for all of you to see your classmate's state currently. They did that because none of you are allowed to visit him for certain reasons. Other than that, all of you should take a good look and say your prayers afterward." He then gave the picture to the class president, earning him the clear, shocked faces of his students, them realizing the critical state of one of their classmates. After the image was passed through the whole class, then given back to Aisawa, he continued his words for them. "All right then. I know all of you have a lot in mind about that, and probably want me to give more information other than that photo, but judging by all your reactions, I don't think it's best to say most of it. So I'll say the ones that won't put any of you in further stress. Shoto Todoroki isn't just in a critical state, for his doc said to Recovery Girl that he'll be facing far more troubles once he has awoken from his partial comatose state. PTSD of the likes and other conditions that may cause him an episode. With that, the doc also wanted to relay a message to all of you. Isawa once again took out another note from his person. To those that may concern about young Shoto Todoroki's state, I, the doc, request upon all of you, his colleagues, classmates, family, and friends, to give mind of his mental health. Physically, we can heal him, but mentally is another. It'll take some time, but as things are right now, young Shoto will heal from these physical injuries he has taken, but with such a brutal state he endured. I'm sorry to inform that he'll most likely be witnessing episodes throughout the following months and likely years. Please, for his sake, take note of his condition. Isawa then ended. You all heard that. Once Todoroki comes back in UA High, special care should be given to him by all of you. That, if he'll still come back here, that is. This shocked all of them. Todoroki, not coming back to UA High? What? Their faces tell it all for the mummified hero. A clear difference in experience that day was shown. I personally doubt that he'll come back, and the reason for it is simple. Once the day that all of you manage to come to witness real pro-hero work, all of you will understand why. Even those that watched that day could tell. Once such a thing like that was to happen to anybody, it's either retirement or death. No average hero would risk it once that kind of brutality were to happen to them. Isawa was pissed when he said this, but it wasn't meant for the students, but for himself. It's a harsh truth with pro-hero life, but they need to know, as well for him to remember the failings of heroes today. It's suicide to keep on going after that, but what makes him tick more of it is that he could have helped that day, but he was too far away and far too mesmerized that moment, that he failed to move immediately to help with subjugating Midoriya from his onslaught. No one could blame him though. Even those that were near were not able to react immediately, but it still pisses him off for not being able to. With a breath, Isawa calmed himself as he continued his speech. That's all for now with Todoroki. It's Midoriya's turn. With another breath, he continued. He's currently nowhere to be found. After the distraction he did by destroying the stadium's floor and sending it up in the air with such force, not even a slick of a hint of him was found. With that, all of you might ask about how and why such a thing could have happened that day. In truth, even we don't have an answer for that, but we think that it might be the works of the League of Villains. The League of Villains that send chills down their spines as they recall the USJ incident. Other than that, we have nothing to lead with. The cops are already doing their work on it, and will come to us later this day, so I'll finish this day off for all of you early, but before that. Isawa then signaled someone outside the halls. We were supposed to talk about your hero names and internship with hero agencies across Japan, but because of what happened yesterday, the internships will wait for further notice. The naming on the other hand. Midnight will take care of that today, so pick your hero names wisely. Isawa ended as Midnight took over until the end of the class that day. As the students' school time was ended early, a meeting was organized within UA High. The principal, along with a certain detective, the #1 hero, and all the school pro-hero teachers, will now have a discussion on the said event that happened a day ago. Ahem. So is everybody here? All Might. Here Eraserhead. Midnight. Here Present Mike. Yo Vladking. Here Cementos. Here then, that's all for the main faculty members. With a cough, Nizu, the school principal, raised his hand, then signals everyone to take a seat. Well then, let's get this started, shall we? Before you do that, who's that guy with the trench coat? Eraserhead asked, not knowing who and what may the reason be for the said person to be with them. Oh yes, I'm sorry for not introducing him sooner, but this person here is a representative of the police force given to us. May you introduce yourself to us, good sir? Nizu signaled at the man. Of course. My name is Tsukachi Naomesa. I'm a police detective for most of the time, but now I'm currently a representative of the police force to be with your current conference on a certain matter. Please do take me kindly though. I won't be giving too much unnecessary information to the main police branch, but I will take all the information I could from here to help. Naomesa, or true man, ended. Can we trust you though? Vlad King questioned with doubt in his eyes. Ahem. Don't worry about it, Vlad. I can vouch for him. All Might clarified. Fine, as long as it's you. Vlad accepted. All right then, let's not get into any more distractions and get to the point. With a clap of his paws, Nizu took all of their attention towards him. We're here today because of what happened at yesterday's events during the school sports festival. Or to be more specific, about a certain boy named Midoriya, Izuku. Nizu then opened a projector near him, showing the events that occurred yesterday, then pausing it at the point where Midoriya still stood from Todoroki's attack. It's clear that something wrong happened at that time, but the thing is, it's a very unexpected event to occur that we're still jogging out heads on how such a thing happened. So, that's why we have Mr. True Man here to give us a bit of light on what happened when they investigated the scene. Nizu looked at True Man to continue the subject. I'll start then. First off, I would like to also say that we also have minimal information about what happened yesterday, but we did manage to find some probable leads. When the kid, Midoriya, Izuku, turned, we took the liberty to check on the entirety of the stadium, finding as much information we could get on how he became that violent. It was Naomesa's turn to make use of the projector as he showed all the information and footage they gathered from their investigation. We started looking at the sidelines of the stadium towards the nook and crannies of its crevices, then the main area itself. As far as we are concerned, though, there's not much to go by, not even a little to get some clues, so we went towards the records of people that went during the event. He then projected all the persons that came that day. Again, no leads, for all that were there at that time are pro-heroes, no unidentified personnel, no nothing. Some of us even worked for the whole day, 24/7 to check the cameras to see anyone suspicious, but to no avail. His face told it all, for he was also one of those that checked through all of it. The exhausted and frustrated look he showed, the tone of his voice. It was clear for them to see. Naomesa coughs for a moment, seeing that their attention was more on his look rather than what he said. This signaled those around him to go back to the subject in mind, giving him the go to continue his say. So that leads us towards those concerning the teen himself. He then showed files about the teen, looking through his files and such, but not much lead was gained. Because of that, we'll be looking to search all those that he has a connection with, starting with his mother. Naomesa then showed the image of Inko Midoriya, showing the mother of Izuku Midoriya for all of them to see. We already gave a call to Miss Midoriya, but we would like one of Izuku's teacher to come with us, and All Might when we go to her household. That was her request, so I wish that one of you will agree. I'll go. Eraserhead took the initiative. It looks like that he too wanted a word with Midoriya's mother. With Eraserhead's response, the detective gave a small bow as he continued. Thank you. Now, about the case again. As I have said earlier, we don't have much information, but we have probable leads. Those are his friends, teachers, and family. Naomesa looked towards each of the teachers in the room, all of them giving him a nod. Great to know that all of you are willing. I'm also here to ask of all your thoughts on what may have happened to make Izuku Midoriya that way. Other than that, we also hypothesize that this might be a work of the same organization that attacked the USJ a few weeks ago, but for now, we aren't entirely sure. So, we're sorry for it being too minimal, but like you guys, we don't have much in a lead with it. No one can blame him with such little information. Even they agreed that it's hard to get a hold on what truly happened that day, on what could have caused such change in one's own. It's all right, detective, you guys did your best. All Might interjected as Naomesa nodded to his words. Yes, it's all right, detective, but now let us give our thoughts with that subject. Anyone want to start first? Nizu looked at the other teachers. Vlad King was the first to volunteer. I don't have much to say on this subject, so sorry. This Midoriya kid is not one of my students, so I don't know the kid that much, but I think Eraserhead might give us some light. That was Eraserhead's cue to really start off the discussion, with a bit of irritation showing from his face. He answered, Fine then. First off, all that I can say about Midoriya is that he's a cry-baby and highly sheepish kid. And with that, all of the persons inside the conference room just blankly blink at what Eraserhead said, until he continued his speech, that is. That's the truth, but Izuku Midoriya is also a hard-working kid. Smart too, at the same time, is a true hero at heart. As for what happened yesterday, even I was surprised by such a thing to happen, and if you ask me, that's not the Izuku Midoriya that I know, and as far as things go, that's an entirely different person. The feeling I got from him at that time was of a villain, and probably far worse than that. All of you here felt it, right? The intent to kill. That final word he gave got the attention of all of them as the memories of what they felt back then hurtled back within their being. He's right on that. I and Cementos also felt it. Being near and all, midnight added as during that time, no one couldn't deny it. After all the hero work she has done, same as those that watched. They knew the feeling far too well. We did. That with Endeavor and All Might added. Cementos continued with his thoughts also. How about you, All Might? You're the one that actually got some good hits at him. Did you feel the same as we did? Yes. It's the same as all of you, I'm afraid. Even I, the symbol of peace, did not expect such an experience to come that day. There was no denying it. Along with the intent to kill, when All Might got to exchange blows with Midoriya, Geru, his senses went wild as self-preservation kicked in when they fought. A feeling that won't leave the number one hero anytime soon. Naomasa then added one of his thoughts. I wonder though. Sorry if I asked in advance, but if you two, Midnight and Cementos, was there, why didn't you two help with the subjugation of Midoriya? This was to be expected, for they are the ones that's supposed to stop things like this to happen, to make sure the safety of the students. We don't mind. I and Cementos actually talked about that, and we're a tad bit ashamed for not interfering. But if it was you to be set on our places, what will you do if two of the most known heroes to date was the one to come and stop them from going further? Add with one yelling on top of his lungs for us to not to interfere, along with the thought process of it's just a student. Midnight's answer wasn't fully what Naomasa expected, but it has its truths in it, and to be honest, he might probably do the same, given the circumstances. With nothing to say, the discussion continued. Then that's your answer, but still, we could have done something much earlier, but it took us far too long to snap out of it and help at the end, which still surprised all of us. Such power that came out of the boy's quirk. It really was an experience we won't forget. Midnight ended with a solemn look on her face. Because of the mood it created, All Might took the initiative to change the subject. Enough of that now. I think we have already talked as much concerning young Midoriya. Let's now talk about the damages he did, shall we? Everyone in the room agreed. So how is Todoroki's son doing? Any of you have an idea? Present Mike questioned with concern in his face. For such a thing to happen, will he even come back after all that? The doc said to us that he'll be back to sufficient working order after a few more weeks. As for his condition though, all we could do is hope and pray for the kid's health. The doc really gave importance to that, and judging by the tone of his voice, it's that severe. Naomasa answered. That's true. He even gave a letter. Recovery Girl was the one to give it. Izuku added. With that, Izuku went and gave the letters he got from Recovery Girl concerning about Shoto's health, while Naomasa showed them all the images that the doc gave to him when he asked for the teen's condition. It shocked all of them from seeing such images that it even made them flinch from the brutality of it all. Because of that, they agreed to not see any more of the images given by the doctor as they continued their meeting. Anyhow, it's Endeavor himself that we should take note of rather than his son. Currently, our informants say that he's already taken a permit from the main Brock to start looking for the boy with his own selected team. And as of yesterday, he's been looking all over Japan in search of Midoriya. But what I'm afraid of though is what he'll do to Kid. Naomasa's worry was the same as theirs. If there's anyone they should really be concerned about, it's Endeavor and what he might do to the kid. How about the police? Have they started looking for Midoriya? Vlad asked, wanting to be informed as the rest. As of now, no, we're currently busy with other stuff. It seems that after that event, we have come across an increase in movement of villains. May this just be bad timing, but it's highly likely to be a bad omen that someone is also capitalizing on the event. We assume it's the League of Villains, so it isn't far-fetched that they're doing this to distract us on searching for the kid, which is currently working, I'm afraid. He wouldn't believe how right he is about this, as a certain evil already has his sights on the boy. But for now, they don't know it yet. If that's the case, Detective, how about giving us permission to go look for the boy, the same as Endeavor? We already planned on finding young Midoriya, along with other heroes volunteering to join us, so all we need is the green light from the police to make it official. Nizu suggested. With a smile on his face, Naomasa agreed on the suggestion. All right, after this I'll go straight ahead with the Chief of Command. We'll get on it as soon as possible, I promise. With that, the conference just continued upon agreeing on what to do as soon as they got the permit to search for the teen. From starting on where to start looking, towards countermeasures once they find Midoriya, and a plan after all of it was done. On a rather reminiscing playground near Hosu, A hunter is currently bandaging his wounds as his body ached for any movement he made. That bastard. Garu scorned in his mind as he remembers the relentless pursuit he just endured for this day. I must keep on moving until I heal. Can't fight all of him at once in this state, he said as the memories of his time against 8 A-class heroes and 3 S-class came back little by little. That guy has some firepower in his side. And with that army of his, it makes me even more thrilled to fight them all once I healed. Garu's grin widened as the thought basically restarted his thirst for the hunt of heroes. He smiled once more as he also remembered that other guy with the twin blonde hair. All Might was it? He thought to himself as he relocated his left burned shoulder. A clear indication of what he just encountered during this day. Garu at this point just couldn't contain himself, as the feeling of fighting S-class heroes just insinuates his desire to grow even stronger than them. To have the advantage as he's nearing his goal to become a true monster, or soon, to become the bearer of absolute unbiased justice. With the sclera of his eyes already turning red, as hints of his hair turning into a slightly more violent shade of green and violet. His senses enhanced as it alerted him about someone on top of the buildings he's near at. Another hunter was looking at its prey as Garu grinned with blood still gushing out of his injuries. No matter what he does, even during that time when he fought with Watchdog Man, then straight up meeting King, the urge to fight, the urge to go beyond his limit, just won't go away. So he stood as he looks behind him, signaling his stalker to show himself. The other hunter could only oblige as his being showed, with a crimson scarf and the face of a killer, adorned with blades used for his killings. He's not a hero, but I don't mind, Garu smugly said as he faced his last opponent for the day. Come at me then, he yelled as an aura of immense pressure radiated out of him. This is interesting. The other hunter smirked as licked the side of his blade. Clearly, he too was excited like Garu. Before that though, name Stain, he said as he already rushed Garu with a knife aimed at him. Surprises, surprises, Garu said in mockery as he deflected Stain's blade, then countering it with a kick towards his stomach, launching the killer back to his spot. Name's Garu. Make this fun for me, will you? Garu smugly said as Stain smiled from such a prey he has encountered. Die. A maturing wolf. Die, was the word Stain spewed out of his mouth, as the ever-present grin of his kept on widening. His being, only growing more and more bloodthirsty as he now faced a rather exotic adversary. When was it? The killer questioned himself, a question in which he tried to remember his first? Or was it in his most recent of memory? A question of such a feeling he is now undertaking from someone such as the kid in front of him. A feeling in which made his entire body tremble in excitement, thrill, and anticipation, but also with a tint of contempt, angst, doubt. Well, whatever it was, it's unpleasant to say the least. It's strange as the killer puts it. Such a feeling rarely shows for him. But on this day, it was different. The air around the kid was suffocating, as well as the tense glare the kid gave him. With those eyes, sclera of crimson as his pupils amber like the eyes of a wolf, along with the strange scent of danger coming out from the very body of the boy. Again, not many has made Stain to feel this way, but he did not dislike it, not yet at least. For such cases, what does not kill you only makes you stronger. Such an analogy Stain said to himself, for this was one of those cases. The feeling of excitement and uncertainty, a feeling in which Stain knows will undoubtedly give him more. More in a sense that compared to the trash he took care of in the past, this hunt, so to speak, this hunt that's ensuing at the very moment, is and will be different and quite unique compared to the others. That's why the killer could just grin, a grin of joy, but at the same time, a grin of unease. As his blade, now closing in towards the kid in front of him, it was surreal to see that such an expression can come out of the said kid. The expression in his face told it all, an expression of joy, calm, and bloodlust. A very strange kid you are. Stain could only think, as not many would even have the balls nor the nerve to stay calm and enjoy oneself from a killer, such as himself. Still, the boy only waited as he got closer and closer, until he disappeared. Stain didn't even register it, but the boy suddenly disappeared, until the sensation of a rather sharp feeling in his stomach grew stronger as the moment passed by. With a turn of his head downward, the killer could only gawk at the sight as his body, as if delayed, was sent back with such a force. He could have sworn that it was a gust of wind which was the reason for such a push. Close, but not entirely close. With that, Stain only braced himself as the push of wind was enough to send him flying towards a nearby wall. Said wall was also the cushion that stopped his momentum. Pain and the loud cracking of bones and cement was heard. What the hell was that? Stain spurted out as he pulled himself out of the wall, then almost puked out a ton of blood from the blow he took. Is this really all you got? Garu said, but the tone and the way it came out felt like he was disappointed. I thought you would put on a show for me, Stain. I guess you're just like the trash I first envisioned that you are. Heh. Now Garu's tone was mocking. Bastard, Stain said softly as he threw a knife towards Garu, only to be caught in between his fingers. Is that it? Garu said once more, but the killer was no longer there. Escaped, huh? Puss dash. With a sickening thrust, Garu felt a knife got lunged towards his side. He could only move his eyes as he saw a silhouette of crimson, then another incoming attack, which Garu blocked with both his hands. Said attack was a roundhouse kick from the hero killer himself, Stain. The kick was enough to at least put some distance between the two, but still. You underestimate me, kid, or Garu was it? Stain was the one mocking this time as Garu touched his side. Bleeding again, Garu only looked at his own blood, not showing even a sense of fear or unease from it. Well, just color me surprised. And here I thought that you ran away from me, Garu said as he smiled towards the killer. Truly strange, was the thought that came out from Stain. How about this then? Stain said as he licked the blood off the blade he just plunged in Garu. Garu only gave a rather puzzled gaze on what Stain meant until he felt it. Stain only grinned once more as he rushed Garu for another slice of the fun, so to speak. Though, he rather not play with this one, said the killer to himself at the back of his mind. And so die, Stain said again as Garu's body was frozen still. Garu was baffled as the feeling of all his being was suddenly stopped. He was bewildered by it, more so as a sense of anger raised from his stupor of unmoving, as a knife with the intent to kill is making its way towards Garu himself. He was angered even more as his body did not want to listen. Damn it, Garu scorned to himself as he braced for the incoming blade to hit him, and it almost did, until memories of a certain boy came once more, memories of torment and despair, memories of the weak being trampled by those in power, memories of a boy that was forced to be the monster of their choosing, memories of having no choice, of having only the clearness of the unfair world that the boy lives in, the memories of a young Garu. With the air changing once more, as the atmosphere begun to feel more and more palpable to the touch. With an inane turn, Stain was left dumbfounded and outright perplexed as a knee went straight towards the hero killer, breaking and shattering the very knife itself, as well as hitting and dislocating the very arm of the crimson-scarfed killer. Stain has no words as all of it was no longer possible to blurt out. Impossible was what came out of the mind of the killer, as Garu smashed not just the blade, but the very arm and body of Stain with his absurd and rather ludicrous of a beast of a knee. Simply to put, Garu kneed the ever-living hell out of Stain, breaking both the weapon and the body of the killer. How? Stain let out with a soft voice. The force that he just took, not to mention the near absurdity of it all. Stain was left only to wonder in his mind, as he could not believe truly on what he had experienced. Fear. Stain could only chuckle a breath at this point. The first and true initial hit he took towards his stomach was already enough to be debilitating, but still he can manage at least another one of it at that point. But to get hit once more, with a rather different and agonizing blow. He could not even fathom where the kid his prey, or it was supposed to be, to manage and produce such feat. Not to mention the ineffectiveness of his quirk towards the boy. It was unreal as it was unfair at the same time. Again, Stain could only chuckle as Doom looked him in the eyes. He will suffer, that was the last thing that came in Stain's mind, as unknowingly, he might have unleashed a monster from using his quirk on this one. Then again, what's the point anymore? It has been done, as a flurry of blue came towards the body of the killer. Anguish. As time went on, night turned day, as a body gushing crimson red lay on the pavement near a playground within Hosu. Onlookers could only cover their faces in horror as the ambulances came in, and the police and heroes alike was petrified from the scene. For a body that was still breathing, but in a condition in which made those in the vicinity ask themselves this very question: should we put him out of his misery? That very question was not something a hero, a police, even more as an ambulance should ask, but this was brutality beyond their minds. As if the body could even be hardly known, but the fact still remained. It's still breathing, it's still alive. After finally breaking out of their own petrified state, the ambulance hurried and get the stretcher as well as the 4 blood bags inside their vehicle, the police already clearing away the bystanders that watched, as the heroes investigated the area along with specialists for such courses of action. It took a total of 5 minutes to get the bloodied body inside the ambulance as it hurried its way towards Hosu's General Hospital. Another 5 for the police and heroes in the vicinity to totally close off the area from any and all unrecognized personnel. Just what the hell happened here? One of the heroes said as the others alongside him could only agree in silence. Just what the hell did truly happen there? A question in which could have been solved easily if it weren't manipulated by those in the shadows. The answer that can be found via the nearby CCTVs along the area, but was corrupted by who knows whom, the investigators and specialists said. Truly, what the hell happened there? To find a man soaking in his own blood, his arms bent in a way that could be called as pretzels alongside with his legs, as his upper torso was filled with perfectly circular incisions that could only be described as impossible, in live combat at least. Such a thing isn't normally seen among the injuries of those that went into a fight, so the only conclusion that could be caught from this is that it's caused by the quirk of the assailant. Still, the brutality of it is also quite terrifying. No one should be given such a treatment, even though that someone is a killer himself. This is Stain. The people inside the ambulance yelled as they cleared the face of the man of his own blood. If it were any other man, those inside the ambulance won't even know much, especially if it ain't a hero, but the hero killer's name is still prevalent, more so with them, as they were the ones that usually takes in the victims of the said killer. It's Stain, they said again, dumbfounded and confused, to see the one and only killer himself in such a state. Those inside the ambulance could only scratch their heads as to whom was the killer unlucky enough to face, to be given such a condition. So what do you think? Is it still worth it to recruit such a man? Hirojiri. With a bit of sparse in his voice, the teen with multiple hands along his face could only sigh. Such a waste of effort, is it not? He asked once more, knowing there would be no reply. We're supposed to recruit such a bastard, but look at him go. Inside that ambulance truck, broken and beaten, forcing us to clean up his own mess. Well, I don't really mind it, for we at least got something out from him. Case in point, Izuku Midoriya. The teen only kept on scratching his neck as he recalled the problem child. A little bit pissed, if one were to look closely at his demeanor, but nonetheless, he's grinning inside as he signaled some certain black figures to be on their way. I wonder if the heroes would arrive on time, to know that ambulance is carrying the hero killer. Well, not like it would matter anyway. One less liability, another less pawn. That'll further their efforts in finding out the whereabouts of that kid, for us on the other hand. Kurujiri, if you may. The teen signaled once more as the black mist engulfed the teen and itself, finally about to leave the area, but not before the teen himself saying his last words for the hero killer. Goodbye, Stain. You did your part. Although we may not have meet because of circumstances, still, we did get something out of you, and it seems that we won't be needing you at all because of it. He ended with smirk on his face. Walking alone as his consciousness kept on drifting from time to time. His bloodied wounds may have stopped from pouring, as his blood had already clotted long ago. Still, his state of being is not something he liked. Making his way through the narrow confines of Hosu's alleyways, Garu could only hope to find a place to rest and a place to eat. His body was already exhausted to the point of it almost shutting down. If it weren't only for the fact of his demon-like will to keep on moving, he should have already been dead by now. As he was already in a bad shape in the later days he had been here, more so of that hit squad that was sent towards him. Endeavor, he said softly as his voice was already too haggard to even try to speak. Oh, how it surprised him. He was trying to patch himself up after some time had passed, in some random abandoned store, but he did not know that bastard had such a wide area of influence in the place he was patching himself up. I'm not complaining, though. I should have guessed it anyways, Garu said to himself as he's closing the end of the alleyway he took. I could have demolished all of them, but the bastards were too afraid. Garu scorned as he kept on moving, finally meeting the outside of the alleyway, finding himself between a rather small family restaurant and some pharmacy by the looks of it. Really though, at least those A-class heroes still went towards the front lines when they faced me. But that Endeavor guy was kinda smart. Already taking me by surprise, he also learned to keep his distance from me. The same goes with that army of his. Still, if I were only fully healed, I could have blitzed every last one of them. This time, Garu grinned at the thought as he slowly made his way inside the pharmacy first. Looking around the vicinity as he made sure no one is there to see him snatch a couple of bandages and painkillers on his way. I really hate stealing, but I have no other choice for now. Garu inhaled inwardly as he got all that he needed and sneakily passed through the pharmacy's door as the people inside did not even notice him. After getting the medical supplies he needed, Garu went around to find a store selling some bags. Well, it's not like he's planning to buy any of them, but he does need at least one small bag for his loot. It only took him just a little bit more of a walk northward to find such a store, then sneakily stole a small bag and moved his way back from that small family restaurant he saw earlier. TSK, I really hate doing this kinds of stuff, but there's no point in me worrying much on it, for I need to do this, Garu said to himself as he looked at the front doors of the small family restaurant, finally making up his mind to do a dine and dash. It's not pretty, but what can I do? Unless I find a forest anytime soon, to get my own food. This is what I'm stuck with. Garu sighed as he entered the restaurant. Inside, he saw an old couple. Tisk. Again, he reminded himself of the reason on why he needs to do such a thing, for he was already losing himself the more he stays in such a condition. Still, it's not something Garu himself would like to do, especially with two old couples. I'll repay you two once I healed, hopefully, he said to himself, and as for what he'll repay them, it isn't money, that's for sure, but finding bears in the forest would do. Basically meat for meat, Garu thought, as he would pay that exact thing for all the meals he would intake. It took almost half an hour, but because of such amount of food he has taken, the old couple could only look at him with bewilderment and surprise, not even able to think much on what they had witnessed in their time with the lad. Having his fill, though, Garu is now given the chance to run to his own dismay. I really hate to do this to you two, but ciao. With that, Garu ran away as fast as he can from the couple, not even turning back. Unknown to Garu, though, the two didn't even notice him leave, because of such a shock the old lovebirds were in. Never in my day have I seen such a kid be able to eat such amount of food, the old man said, as his wife could only nod to such. Having ran a marathon, though, Garu managed to find himself a clearing within the borders of Hosu. A clearing in which it's just a straight road towards a forest. Lucky me, I guess. Garu snickered to himself, finally finding a place where he would not be bothered. At least, not for now, as the feeling of being watched was still there for the hunter. I'll take care of him sooner or later, Garu inwardly said as rushed through the forest, leaving the sight of those that were watching him. It took about half the day's time, but he did it. Garu, now in the middle of the woods, found himself a good place to set up camp, something in which he was already accustomed to. Finally, now I just gotta find a water stream. Saying those words, Garu calmed his mind as it increased his own senses, mostly hearing, that is. It was only after a minute of listening to the music of the wilderness that at last, he found a flowing stream of water just a couple miles away from his spot. Amazing, if one were ever to put it. Using his senses alone, Garu found a source of water through only listening. Such a feat is already extraordinary to say the least. After a bit of preparations and fixing up camp, Garu, with the medical supplies he took, went towards the running water just a couple miles away, though it wasn't really that long to walk towards, but for Garu himself. Something was bothering him as he approached his destination. It wasn't really something that he had any problem of just a couple of hours ago, but because he's finally able to calm down and rest his muscles as he walked. His mind just kept on messing with him, as if it's forcing him to recall something in which in a pit of rage, Geru lost control. Silence only whispered as he walked. Only then did Geru finally give in and let those memories come bit by bit. A cold sense of fright and danger came towards the hunter's body, as an ever-familiar voice came out from his own thoughts. Geru, why have you followed the wrong path? The voice said. It was old and it was in pain. An ever-familiar voice it was for Geru, and even a more familiar sting made its way throughout his body. It's catching up, huh? Geru said as the pain that he clogged out of his senses finally reached its way towards him. Well, no sense in hiding it. With a cough, the hunter held his body together as the pain will soon reach its zenith. Water. That's the last word he said before fighting against a certain cyborg, his body only wanting water, but then was forced to fight once more. The feeling of excitement, adrenaline, and the rush of bloodlust was truly something. If it isn't for those factors, and more with the skill and discipline he learned from a certain old man, he wouldn't be even able to stand against such a beast of a hero. Still, he knows for the fact that he can't win that battle, for the cyborg himself was only toying with him from the start. If Genos' words towards him does not say it, then the cyborg's action does. The demon cyborg, as he was called, from the very start, he didn't even consider him as a threat, even more so as a monster. Geru even scorned the cyborg that day for treating him as trash when he was caught by surprise from the cyborg's own arm. An arm in which held him in place just enough towards a tree, and just enough for the two of them to have a little chat. A chat in which pissed Geru even more. For that time, he was still being treated as an insignificant speck by the so-called S-class heroes. And it may be because of that he managed to break free of his binds, as his pure hatred of such heroes only fueled his body to keep on going. Until he came at least. Water. Once more, Geru said as he finally reached his destination. It'll only just take a couple more steps as he reached for the stream of water flowing along the scenery. Water. Yes, he now remembers. Water stream rock's smashing fist, Ryujui Gansai Ken, as it was called. The martial art in which that old man taught him long ago. Bang was his name. Geru could only chuckle as the memory of the old man finally reached its course towards that stubborn head of his. He never really wanted to fight the old man. He was his master and all, and the man himself that took him in when his own sorry of an excuse of parents could not. He was in some cases his savior too. But why? Why did things turn out as it did? Why did Bang, his master, his guardian, his father, why did he choose to become a hero? To become this so-called Silver Fawn? Was it because he too was the same as them? Those that crushed the weak just like him? Just like that time with his old classmates? That time with the teachers that blamed him, scolded him? Or just like his own parents that didn't even care for him? Parents that didn't even take the side of their own child? It pisses me off. Geru's inner self yelled out, but his body that was already accepting the pain could only rest itself towards the ground, both knees touching the dirt as his arms kept his upper body from fully reaching the soil. So he crawled, slowly but surely, as his head reached the water he's so desperately searching. Water. Geru's mind said once more, only to remember the tears of his master falling down his own face. I died, he said to himself, as the realization also made his eyes water, but not enough to fully cover his sight. Geru just finally accepted it, as he looked towards his own reflection being refracted from the clear, flowing water. It was not him, not even he recognizes the face, for it was not someone he knows of, and not someone that he is. Closing his hands into a fist, only then did he also realize why. Why on earth did he need to be that brutal? Well, to answer that, he only needed to look in himself, for he was angered in a sense that even he could not control it. Cause such phrases as to always stay calm in battle and not get angered is such full of crap that he does not agree upon it with all his being. If you have anger, use it. Don't crap about things like staying calm in battle. Use your damn anger, as it'll be your greatest asset, your greatest tool to fuel yourself through and through. But still, that doesn't mean you should go out of control because of it. No, you should not. For one thing is true about anger, and it's that when you can't control it, Only then you're more of a liability to others and to your own self. That's why people keep on saying to be calm. Even though it won't give you as much as being angered, still he questioned once more. Why? Geru only bowed his head at this thought, closing his eyes as reflected more and more, even though such an act is something he didn't like to do, more so during the days when he was training with his master. He took in a breath, then out. This was something that was not thought upon to the other students, other than him at least. A type of technique, so to call it, that only a few knows of it. And those that did were already dead after witnessing it. It was made for combat mostly, but it didn't hurt to use it in meditation. And so, it helped a lot as in the pain finally subsided because of it as Geru's mind finally flowed like the calm stream right before his eyes. He was at fault, that's the reason why. It was his own refusal of his own death, his own failure, that caused such an anger that even he could not control. He could only say sorry for that kid he almost killed, not so much on that murderer, but still, he was to be blamed for it, and he accepts it. Nothing can be done now. What's done is done. That was Geru's final words for the day, as he looked once more at his own reflection. Then using his own hands, he washed his face in water, then his arms. Then removing the tattered clothes away from his body, he entered the flowing stream of water, naked, until after a couple of time passed. Geru went out of the water, cleaned of the dried blood he had, and the scorch marks that was present before, only leaving the scars it left. Geru sighed as he walked out of the water, taking the medical supplies he took with him, in which he patched himself up. Only then did he wore his tattered clothes, minus the t-shirt, for it was in all sense almost unusable to be called as such, leaving his upper body exposed with the bandages he covered it with. Just like the time he was in that cursed shed. He only let out a chuckle at that, but then only silence. For Geru now knows the general gist of his own predicament. He does not know how, and he does not know why, but there is one thing that is certain. He needs to gather information in which he needs to gather his bearings, and to know wherever the hell he is now. More so to know of the heroes in this strange place he has landed himself into, intentional or not. And so, Geru walked once more, back towards his makeshift camp. He only needs to rest for a bit, and after that, he'll basically be back in full health. So, grinning with those pearly whites, Geru can't wait to start his hunt once more. He may have failed back then, but now he'll make sure to finish where he started. A burden of a father and a mother. Just after 3 days, including the event that happened during the sports festival, it was within these days that Endeavor got his hit squad ready to hunt a certain young man. Fueled by anger, as well as hatred for what has been done towards his son, he swore throughout that he'll make that kid pay for everything, as there was nothing left inside his mind other than vengeance for what had happened. Everything he had, his connections, his resources, everything. He used it all just to find that menace. And so, it didn't take long for him to find out where his target was laying about. Through his connections all around Japan, just the day after they got the green light on commencing their hunt. On the 4th and 5th day, Endeavor finally found where Izuku Midoriya was at the same time, made do of a plan to subdue the young lad. And yet, with all the information he got, all the resources he went through, all the planning, and all the advice he gave towards his absolute unit of a hit squad, having some that aren't even licensed, rather, more under the radar. Even with all that, how? Just how? He questioned, for the result that came from it wasn't even something he would have considered. One look was all it took, a look in which dumbfounded an entire battalion of heroes, a look that screamed danger and death, one look of a monster. Yes, that truly was all it took. Those eyes with a darkened sclera on its left counterpart, the same eyes that have different colors on its iris, yellow on its right as red on its left. Just what the hell are they? Those eyes of a predator, eyes of a monster, and more so as the eyes of fear itself. Endeavor can't give any answer to that. The same goes with the battalion of heroes he took with him to subdue the villain in a teen's clothing. They just can't fathom it, can't process it, can't even believe it. They had the target hook, line, and center. But how? How in God's name can such a thing exist? They don't know, nay, they don't want to know. It wasn't even a child anymore, wasn't even a student that they gathered information off. It was more than that. It was a monster incarnate. The ambush they had set, The ambush that they had planned, the ambush in which was supposed to put the kid down, was nothing but a complete and utter failure. They just can't accept it, can't acknowledge such a bizarre, crazy, and outright insane of an outcome. They kept their distance as they were told. They continued their attack without giving any rest for the target. They did every single thing by the damn book. And yet, still, it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to injure him at all. It wasn't enough to make him stop his movement. It wasn't even enough to stop that everlasting grin of his. Infuriating, stressful, and aggravating for all of them. It's like he was taunting them, making fun of them, playing them like fools. That kid, that teen with his demon of a face, he isn't normal. He isn't the same. If it were any other villain, any other person, and even any other All Might and the likes of him. In '01, they repeated in chorus in their minds. In '01 should be able to be like that. It was unfair. Even All Might, the #1 hero, would agree to their thoughts if asked. Those injuries he took prior from the engagement, and more so with that one and only direct hit they managed to land towards him. Endeavor's own Hellfire arrow. But just how? They questioned. On all fours, he moved, and all four he dodged, evaded, blocked, redirected, countered, pursued, and even more than that. If only they were not told to keep their distance. That ambush, if it can even be called as such, it would have failed. No, it will have failed even more so than it already did with them knowing to back off from that thing. Just what the hell was he? In unison, they asked. The hit squad, the very heroes that Endeavor took to subdue that kid. He's a monster. Plain and simple, Endeavor said to the lot, as he made his way out of the same place they had ambushed Izuku Midoriya, Guru. You may all leave. He ended as he reached outside the abandoned shop. The sun, setting on the horizon, as the broken pavement all throughout the vicinity showed itself, with dozens upon dozens of broken cement that lay waste on the area, more so as the inner center of the building he was in moments earlier. He took the soil beneath him, the cement, the dirt, or simply the earth itself. He threw them, all of them, but none of us knew the true reason for it. At first, it was to block our assault, but as time went by, the more he grew accustomed to it, to us. Endeavor began to reminisce the scene over and over again in his mind. Methodically he moved, patient he waited, and for each passing moment, he analyzed our timings, our attacks, our moves. Not even the top of the villain hierarchy could do such, but it did. The boulders he threw weren't just for cover, but also a path in which he can be both protected from our barrage while running, as well as blocking our path to catch him escape. With a grunt and an ever-rising temperature where he stood, Endeavor then took his leave, but not before destroying the evidence of their failure to capture Izuku Midoriya. Midoriya, was it? Or if that's who you really are. I'll make sure, one day, I'll make you pay, even if it means killing you by my hands. He ended. A week has now gone by since the incident that happened during the sports festival at UA High. Now, just after a long and overdue conference between those that are in question responsible for fixing such a mess. Two main personalities were the ones asked to come, rather than those with a badge. The two in which that had an impact towards a certain boy, and the two that's currently on their way. Inside the home of a mother in disbelief, All Might and Eraserhead have come to ask a few questions. It's almost dusk. Don't you think it's a bit late for us to ask young Midoriya's mother about all of this? All Might asked Eraserhead as they come nearer at the Midoriya household. Well, we could have been here sooner if it weren't for that meeting with those detectives, though it is true that during this time, it's less optimal to meet someone that has lost a loved one, but still, it needs to be done, All Might. Eraserhead responded as they have now reached the front door of Midoriya's home. Well, you're right on that part. Then if you don't mind, let me take the initiative on this one. Eraserhead only nodded as All Might knocked on the door, then asking for a certain mother to come out. Mrs. Inko Midoriya, are you there? This is All Might. And well, Eraserhead, we're the teachers of your son, young Izuku Midoriya. We're here on behalf of your request to meet and talk to us, rather than the fine gents in blue. Would you let us in, ma'am? He ended as he knocked one more time. It took about a minute as the noise of footsteps came near and a door unlocking in a rather slow manner. Then it took another minute as the same footsteps wither out from one's hearing, while a rather soft and somewhat defeated whim of a voice came out. "Come in." There was no strength to that voice, barely even hearable, but even so, both of the two heard it and knew that young Midoriya's mother might not be in a good shape. And so with that in mind, the two braced themselves as they went inside, expecting for the worst. Coming inside, the hallway was dim, the atmosphere cold, as a soft light was lit within the dining area. That's probably where Mrs. Midoriya went, the two thought as they continued forth. But the thing that they saw, even when prepared for the worst, it's still disturbing for the eyes of the two heroes. There on the other side of the dining table, a woman, still having a little bit of thickness, yet clearly has signs of malnourishment, having long, messy dark green hair. There she stood as her eyes glared at the two, while bits of red from the side of the scara can be seen, add with the darkened eye bags near it. Sleep deprivation, stress, and insomnia. All that went straight to the minds of the two as they rationalize on what might be the probable causes of such state. But that was just focusing on her upper half. By looking at her entire figure, a mess is the only thing that could be derived from it. Inko Midoriya, the mother of Izuku Midoriya, was more like a walking zombie at such a state. It's now clear for the two how much damage it caused when Izuku, her son, became something that even they don't know what. A failure on their side. As for them, such a thing could have been prevented. In All Might's case, he cursed the one that could have easily caused such suffering. But in all honesty, that isn't even near the whole truth. While Eraserhead, on the other hand, could only blame a bit of himself, being the one in charge of Class 1A, which also means keeping students like Izuku Midoriya in check. Even now he questions himself on what truly did go wrong, and if he could have prevented it in some way or another. But then again, it's no longer of use to dwindle about the past now. Now is the time they need to take action in the present and plan for the upcoming future. Starting first at making sure of Mrs. Midoriya's health and knowing anything at all, that she can offer. Information, habits, unusual behaviors, and more. So, as the two nodded to each other and start the conversation, they were silenced as it was not they which would start it, but rather, it was her. Inko's eyes became sharper than anything that two has seen, her eyes as if judging them. As it looked straight through their souls, the air tightened more and more as the brooding mother began to speak. "What did you two do? What did you do?" she said in an uneasy, soft tone. What do you mean, Mrs. Midor-? I said, what did you two do?" Inko yelled on top of her lungs as her quirk then activated in such a way that for all the years that had gone by, never had it became as such. Knives within the kitchen begun to float as the other furniture began to levitate as well. All pointed towards the two. Just this action alone made the two quiver in fear, but also ready to stop the woman before she does something she would regret. It was also this moment that Eraserhead was about to activate his quirk as All Might was ready to get a hold on Mrs. Midoriya, but before they could do anything at all, the tense cold air has then begun to dissipate as the utensils, knives, and other wares that were being manipulated by Inko's quirk begun to drop, as well as Inko herself. A clear sign of exhaustion, anger, and distress. All Might was quick with his feet, as before Inko fell alone with those dangerously close knives near her back, All Might took her body and slowly put it down near a soft chair. With all the tension dying out, Inko, with her soft and haggard voice, asked once again, "What did you do to my son?" She ended as her body passed out and her eyes closing, still breathing, but her health deteriorating as time went on. The two, being fast to respond, quickly took Mrs. Midoriya to a nearby hospital, where she is to recover as time passes by. The presumed questioning about one of the probable costs of what may be the change in young Midoriya's character, gone in an instant, as the two were only left with questions themselves. Inko Midoriya, the mother of Izuku Midoriya, even she does not know why. If her words and action towards them were not enough for that, then her reaction definitely is. Just what could have truly been the cause? That question still remains a mystery, not just for the heroes, but for also the dark within the light, the villains in waiting. Now at the present day, a total of a week and a half, or maybe two, in which Garu estimated. His wounds finally healed as he wakes from his makeshift bed, letting a bit of the cool breeze of morning air pass all throughout his body. Garu, with a rather sluggish, yet still flow-like movement, stood up. This body really needs to stretch more and be more flexible. Garu grumbled as he stretches his body, then proceeded to lament on what to do on that day. Information maybe? Food. So I can repay those two old couples? Find out what those freaks want from me. Or maybe just hunt a few heroes along the way. To see how well they match with those that I'm familiar of. To hell to think that this place is the same as where I came from, and to hell that I died just before reaching my goal. Tise? Garu then stopped that line of thought as he took in a breath. You're such a pain, you know that, right? Old man. As Garu's mind cleared, he then took consideration of the now rather than then. He noticed the area was like one of those mountainous ranges from city to city from where he once came from. Taking note of the scenery and land, Garu took notice of at least one mountain that in his current area was the highest point. Huh, never skip your morning jog. Isn't that what you would say, you old geezer? Reminiscing once more on the brutal training that his master gave them, Garu walked towards the foot of that mountain. And so, after a bit of time walking around, finally reaching his destination, the hunter began to limber himself up for that morning jog. With a deep breath, Garu moved at such incomprehensible speeds that for the naked eye alone, he seems to have vanished as footmarks begun to exist out of nowhere. And so, if one would wonder, can that even be called a jog? In Garu's standards, yes. But in this world, no. It only took a couple of minutes, but finally at the very top, Garu made it, though the body of the young man he's in. I need to train. Garu grumbled to himself as he then proceeded to make another makeshift area for himself, an area where he would strengthen the weak body he's in. It took almost half of the day's worth, but the training ground he made for himself was complete. After stretching a bit more, Garu then proceeded to do the same training he once did during his time with his old master, starting with building his endurance once again, as well as the nimbleness or the agility this body needed as a prerequisite in performing the art that his master taught him. To lift a boulder the size of a two-story building would already be an insane task to be given to a child, but to carry twice the amount. Now that's just insane. Though that being said, it's also something not even All Might would like Izuku to do, more so without the power of One for All. But Garu, on the other hand, he was no other kid, even back then when he was being trained by Bang. Through his will to become stronger, even the top disciples of Bang at that time were outshined by him, envied, and more. For all that happened, for everything that was given to him, as well as the care and love the old man gave to him. And even though the whole truth of why that incident happened during those times was never known, even for Bang himself. On Garu's side, he knows. Just already when he first started his training under Bang, the creator of and master of the flowing water rock smashing fist, those that came before him didn't take him kindly. At the back of their master's shadow, those upperclassmen, those first that came before Garu, hated that he was given such a good treatment by their master, and so, many of them purposely did heinous acts upon Garu, making it harder and harder for the young boy to climb towards his goal, and yet, they unknowingly made something they would regret in the future. At this time of his life, Garu knows that he won't be given an ear even if he were told what they were doing, though, that's only on his mind, but who can blame him? His childhood was already shit as he was given a clear idea that only those with power are the ones that'll always win, and the ones that'll always be given a voice to hear. He, on the other hand, was not, and so, he never told anything of it towards Bang, and for the upperclassmen, they thought it was because he's scared, and just kept on making things worse and worse for him. They thought they can break him and that he won't fight back, but they were wrong. Time went by as Garu kept on getting stronger and stronger, to the point that during one of their spars, none of them would even want to have a go with Garu, as the sense of fear begun to climb up their spines while their former Kohai was given more praise and worth from their master, that they expected him to burst out of them at that point on. But that point where even their master thought that he would be the next prodigy of the art, he didn't. They thought they were in the clear, they thought he won't do anything against them, they thought that he may have forgiven them, just like how their master would. They thought. At the time when Bang accepted the offer to become a hero, at the time when he was out and they were training alone with Garu, that was the time they got what they deserved. A chosen few of them got an ear full from Garu, while the rest were casualties of their transgression towards him throughout the years. The way he broke them, the way he made sure that none of them will ever come back. There was a reason why Sharanko was the only one left in Bang's dojo, and there was a reason why no one came back, even after Garu was kicked out by Bang himself. And that reason was that day alone. A day of infamy for them, while for Garu, a solemn day of the only person he once trusted becoming something he distastes and has sworn to hunt. A hero. Time went by as Garu had these thoughts, him not even realizing that the body he's in had already grown accustomed to the pain and suffering it had been enduring all day long. The gruesome training he did has now paid off, but it was also something that he fonder about his new body. Taking a rest for that day, he once again took note of his surroundings. Destroyed and uprooted trees, pulverized boulders, broken and split earth. From all of that, it was a sight to behold. All of it done in a day's worth of training. But it's the after that Garu now needs to take note of. As his body now grown accustomed to the damages he can go through, tomorrow was now the time for him to refine his martial art. Ryujui Gansai Kin, Water Stream Rock Smashing Fist. And so, after a long night's rest, Garu once again kept on doing his training over and over again, no longer keeping track of the time that has gone by since his arrival at such a world. From the days, maybe weeks, or probably months that had gone by. No one knows of where he was. No one knows of the place he had been training, as only the distant rumblings of earth-shattering sounds were left from the training Garu has been going through. It may have been easy for Garu to perfect his master's martial art, but without a proper opponent or a primer of sorts to get him farther. A few of the following weeks that had gone by was wasted on him, just focusing and remembering the last time he fought with his sensei, making an image in his mind of his master as he fought against it over and over again. But no matter how fluid and near-perfect his movements have gotten, even in his mind, he still cannot beat the old man. It angered him as his form grew fiercer and fiercer, and the air around Garu's hand whistled as if turbines of the fastest plane ever created by man was near. Still, once again, even with his anger, even with his discipline, and along with his training, the image in his mind, the old man in front of him, he still could not beat him. I'll be damned that they say you're a hero. You're more of a monster than I am, Garu inwardly said to the imaginary Bang in front of him, only then to stop for a moment and take calm on his frustrations. Silence began to reign once more, as Garu once again continued to his training, a training in which no one would even believe if they saw. To see a man do such feats is already inconceivable, but to see a kid, a teen, though it is Garu that's now residing within such a body, it's still beyond belief to believe that such a physique of a young teen could handle the strains of his training. It'll be even more so unbelievable if it were to be seen by the former master of the boy's body. All Might if it were him. Just to think that he's in the same body as the teen that can barely use the entirety of One for All. It's ludicrous, but somehow, someway, as if like his original body when fighting those S-class heroes, it also has affected this young boy's entire being. The body in which the boy named Izuku Midoriya, now in the hands of a true warrior, a true fighter, a true worthy successor, is now slowly strengthening, hardening, and shaping itself to compensate with such intense forms and various movements that it's being forced upon. The kicker about this fact, though unknown to the naked eye, the body that Garu's currently shaping didn't break even once. Compare that when it's being used by Izuku Midoriya, it's just strange and somewhat unclear as to why. Maybe, just maybe, the body was accepting the pain, the struggles, and the pressures of Garu's regime, unlike with the usage of One for All. And if it does, what could this mean? Why would it like that? Is it because the body never really wanted powers in the first place? But that would be something far-fetched and stupid to assume. But then again, it's Garu we're talking about, a man that has no such thing of a mindset that's like with the former owner of the body. For on his side of things, as his quote to Terio, if you don't want to get bossed around or mocked by the people around you, you just need to be stronger. And hence, the mindset that one needs powers to become something that person wants won't be taken lightly with how Garu visions strength. So once again, as if the body didn't conform with the ideology of having powers/quirks to become strong, to become something it could be even without it. Maybe that's the cause for the weakness it had back then. A weakness that, unlike with the other successors that didn't have any of those fallbacks, no breaking of bones, no discoloration, no nothing. Maybe now on Garu's case, being the new owner of the body, just maybe. Unlike with the mentality of becoming something, like a hero, that needs quirks/powers, disregarding other ways to become stronger. Maybe that's why? Maybe, because of another person's point of view about strength and how to achieve it, to take it, to form it, and to make it his. Maybe, the body was just opposed to the thought of becoming something with an attribute it doesn't have. Maybe it's because of this, a different view, a different use, and a different user. To strengthen oneself, it doesn't need to be through special means. It doesn't need to be something it isn't, rather. It just needs to be something it can be, and will be, through hard work. Isn't that how Garu became this strong? Bullied and treated as the weak one in society, made to be the monster, the loser, the powerless. In a society where those with power truly shine more than those without, and those without, just like what happened to Garu. Thrown on the sidelines as they're branded as the weak and pitiful, something insignificant at the end of all things. It angers him, even when he fought a certain demon cyborg. Exactly like that, he was treated as if he were just some common trash, a crook that's been hunting heroes out of a false sense of thought. Yet they don't know. None knows truly on why he started such crusade against heroes. Though the answer to that, can it really be answered simply? For Garu from another time, another world, another place, against a bald hero. For him, it was true and unbiased justice that he sought for, where people that were given power can no longer trample down on those without, and so, he'll be the primer of such a world where all will fear him, at the same time, a world that will no longer have hierarchies, for all would be too busy becoming one to stop his reign of terror. But how about now? This circumstance he's in, this body, this world. If that's still the goal Garu sought for, then it's still far from reality. Maybe that's why he's training more and more, even though it's not going as fast and as far as he had hoped. But that's the only thing in his mind that he could do for now. He could hunt heroes once again, yet having little to no information about the world he's in, plus the fact that he already started his training. Then to perfect the art that his master taught him is currently his priority, to finish something that he had started long ago. Though, there could be another thing he could take priority of. For the days he had been training in this area, Garu knew that at least a person would notice, even if it were in some high mountain in the middle of the woods. The amount of destruction he's been doing with his training, and the fact that he's not far off from a distant city, as well as managing to see some sort of a private camp. It was only a matter of time for one to come in and see what he'd been doing. It didn't bother him, though. If it were a hero, he would just beat the hero to a point where she wouldn't be able to speak of what they saw. Same could be said with a civilian. But that's if they're stupid enough to come up a mountain filled with giant bears and wolves. It would be laughable if one ever did yet. Out of all the possibilities of who will come and check him out, to see a young boy braving it out, he can't help but be surprised at the risk that the boy took. Garu gave a phantom nod on the kid's bravery as he was still doing his stances at that point in time. The boy didn't know he was already spotted from a mile away, even though he was covered by the flora near the area. It only took a bit more time as Garu finished his day's worth of training. Now though, with a grin, he vanished. Confused and rather startled by what just happened, as the teen in the eyes of the boy just vanished without rhyme or reason, the kid uncertain on what to do and worried on what might happen if stayed for longer in an area with him alone, he then hurried back at a certain camp near the mountainous area. Maybe this will be the day Garu will get the information he needs. Plus, he's good with kids. Though that's only what he thinks, the only kid that he ever had any interaction with was none other than that bowl-cut hairstyle with a bald spot of a kid named Terrio. Return of the Hunter. It wasn't really a problem following the brat as Garu perched himself upon the trees above, but what was a problem is the feeling of being watched himself. It was strange, but it's as if someone has already located him from somewhere and he has no idea how. Was he just being paranoid, or was his instinct telling him the truth? Only time will tell now as the young boy finally reached an opening from the dense forestry he went through. Now out in the open, the boy ran as fast as he could towards a nearby dorm, camp, just a few meters away from the forestry he went out of. Garu, on the other hand, was left intrigued. It's true that he didn't really bother searching out of his training area and all, but to know a building was this close to where he was lodging at, he pondered at the thought if any of the people that may live here heard of his intense training on top of the nearby mountain. But then again, if those people were here, then they would have known of his existence long before. They didn't, though. Garu never felt anyone was near other than now. And so, the people here, that boy, and probably his guardians, just recently got here, and that building is most likely a summer home of sorts, only used on special occasions. A few more minutes went by as the kid was practically at the doorsteps of the dorm, and there, a woman came out, having brown and bob-cut hair. She instantly took the kid inside, and then Garu's senses heightened as he vanished from the spot he was spying the kid upon. A man came in as he slashed the air from where Garu once stood. The man was bewildered and shocked, but then looked towards where Garu hid. How did he know? Still, Garu has no clue, but before the man could do anything, Garu vanished once more. His movements were just too fast to be seen, that even the feeling of him being watched by something went away for a brief moment, only to locate him once again. Moving on the other side of the fauna, getting annoyed of said feeling, Garu sneered a bit as he let out a sigh. Annoying, he said in spite as his figure suddenly changed. No, rather, in all sense, he became invisible even in the eyes of the one that kept on sensing his presence. How though? Well, to answer that, Garu could only give credit to a certain ninja way back then. For at the start of his hero hunt, at the start of his proclamation of war against the Hero Association, there was one that came first before him. A person that was far too fast, even for him to realize that he was there. Even Garu was left surprised by him, as the only time he sensed him was when he took the files of paper asking those degenerates to help along with the heroes. That bit pissed him off. At the same time, the person that Garu never got to see vanished once more, leaving him with the degenerates and heroes alone. A lucky day that was for Garu, because he's for certain if he were to fight that speed-focused person, he has no chance in even landing a single hit. That just goes to show that it isn't just the heroes that are powerful, but there are also others out there. Anyhow, after that encounter, and after beating the ever-living hell out of everyone inside that place, Garu has always pondered on how that person did it, how he managed to slip even from the eyes of the hunter himself. And so, through training and meditation of all his past encounters, Garu somewhat acquired that skill. His heartbeat almost too slow to be noticed, his presence completely covered by the fauna he's in, as his movements lay no sounds as if he was a ghost in this world. The eye that was looking at him from before no longer senses him, nor even sees where he is, same as the man that was pursuing him earlier before. Only confusion and wariness were left from them, as Garu moved in a ghost's phase, entering at the back of the dorm camp, with no soul even knowing of his person being inside. There, he entered a hall leading towards a kitchen. Nothing of interest, so Garu moved further inside. With just a couple more silent steps, he reached the room where the kid and that woman was at. It seems that it wasn't just her, for another woman was there. She was different to say the least, having a greenish tint to her hair and a somewhat carefree face. The two of them were only left in questions and bafflement from his disappearance, not even noticing his presence just near the room's opening. Taking note of the room where the three was at, Garu then moved and moved further, checking door by door, just like a ghost, trying to find any more persons that he should be worried off, only to be disturbed by a noise outside. Looking through the window, it seems that the three have finally gone out of the building, as the man that tried to attack Garu earlier was there too. Then a thing that resembles a monster came, then crumbled as another woman fell from it, landing on her feet. This time, said woman was a blonde, and by the looks of it, she seems to be the type of being excited, to say the least. Garu just had a feeling about her, but anyhow, it seems there are a total of 5 of them, 3 women, 1 man, and a child. They were now talking to each other, probably getting their guards up because of him. Does it matter though? No, not really, but that just means he won't be able to move freely around this place, as long as those 4 adults were there. Maybe he'll just find a time where he could get his hands with the kid. If anything, it's easier for him to talk with the child rather than those adults, for it seems none of them are too keen to talk. Well, at least in this world. They have a better response time against me, unlike with the Hero Association. Garu smirked a bit, for he's hoping the heroes here were different than those he once fought. Well, at least a bit different. He just hopes that none of them are far too weak for him. Because if they are, then this would be one boring time as he ascends to become the hunter he has always been. More moments passed as two of the four adults went their way. The green-haired woman and the man were left with the kid. Garu was still inside the dormitory, but soon enough he'll make his move and look around more within the place. Hopefully, he'll get his chance to have a small talk with the kid. Though then again, why with the kid? Couldn't he just find the information he needs by looking through the place? A book about this world is bound to be just laying around, or even a phone that's connected to the internet will do. Or better yet, Garu could just beat the hell out of the two and make them speak. But it seems the hunter has wised up a bit. Not everything can be solved through violence, and not everything can be solved on his own. So talking with anyone that would hear him out was the better choice. And lucky for him, that kid was his best bet, being much less of a threat, much less of a nuisance compared to adults. And well, Garu couldn't really tell why, but talking to kids were easier for him. Or maybe not. He's still annoyed by the lot of kids out there, but he can't find it in himself to be angered at them. Though, that's only with the case to those that aren't bullies. Just that thought alone makes Garu furious. Well, enough of that as Garu took a breath. It's time for him to go back on point. It seems the two have loosened their guard and let the kid go. Said kid was now minding his own business until, "I'm going. Tell Shino-san I'll be back later," the kid said as he walked away from the two. "But Kota, you showed dash." "No, just leave me alone," the kid yelled and then whimpered a bit as he made his way out of sight from the two. Said two just let the kid be, though Garu could still feel the strange feeling of being watched. Thankfully it wasn't him this time, and rather, it was with the kid named Kota. One of those two may have an ability to be able to keep tabs on him. Garu hypothesized as he too went his way, following the kid, always keeping in mind of his presence, not allowing it to be known. A bit of time went by, and it seems Garu has finally found his answer on how the kid managed his own in finding out where he was training before. The kid was basically following a path towards the other side of the mountain Garu has been training upon. It just seems that it was by mere coincidence that the kid managed to find his training spot for where the kid was now. It'll only take one turn to the left, and he'll be able to reach the training grounds again that Garu has made. "Interesting," Garu softly said as he followed the boy, now entering a small cave within the mountainside. It was homey, to say the least, and was filled with a lot of things that were noteworthy. Well, at least in the kid's point of view. Inside was like a personal man cave, or better yet, a boy's cave. It being filled with a soft sofa in the middle and around it are toys. Well, something akin to them at least. On the side were video games, and boxes filled with comic books, and some newspaper, another strange thing to be inside such a place. Then on the left, something that baffled Garu. A desk, with a frame of two heroes in it, as well as by the side, a few more frames of a child, and a plane. Seems like they traveled a lot back then? Garu questioned, as the biggest thing that took his notice is the globe just near those pictures. It was strange, at the same time, mind-boggling for the hunter. To see a globe where multiple continents lay, truly, he's in a world far from his own. As he minded his business, looking at the piece with intent, it was only then that Garu noticed that the kid was staring at him. His eyes wide as his hands were shaking, trying to hold a portable PlayStation. It seems even the kid was surprised in seeing Garu's figure, to the point that the kid may have just accidentally bumped into him, before realizing there was a person looking through the heirlooms the kid was given. "Why you're the dash," the kid covered his mouth as an intense pressure was put upon his shoulders. Garu was now holding the kid just a bit on his shoulders. The pressure he gave off made it loud and clear for the young boy to stay quiet. "Don't you yell now, brat, or whoever among those two might come here will pay for it," Garu said with tense sharpness on his words, making sure the kid does not dare to do anything stupid. "Good," Garu ended as he took away his hand from the kid. "So, you finally saw me. Kota, was it?" he questioned the boy, only for it to be answered with a nod. Kota was tense and uneasy. The pressure, even though he was no longer held by the shoulder, The pressure the teen in front of him spewed out by his presence alone was more than enough to keep Kota by his toes. "Why you're—" Kota tried to speak, but those sharp eyes staring at him was not helping at all for his demeanor. "The one you saw earlier this day on the other side of this mountain?" "Yes. As for the name kid, maybe you know who I am." Garu grinned as he flicked his finger on the kid's forehead, somewhat playing with Kota's mind. "Ow." Kota scratched his forehead as the flick earlier on hurt a bit. "Jay, just what do you want from me?" Kota questioned as he tried to keep his cool. He needed to buy some time, even if he were to ask stupid questions such as that. For sooner or later his cousin and friends will come and save him. Well, hopefully at least. If the teen in front of him, staring sharply with a gaze he's certain enough that it could even freeze pro-heroes at their tracks, was able to sneak along with him. Kota shivered at the thought that Tomoko's, Ragdoll's, Quirk isn't able to fully track the teen's movement. He could only hope for the best, as time will tell what will happen with his predicament. Moments passed in silence as Garu was trying to find a way to get reliable information out of the kid. Using fear is nice and all, but with said fear, it'll make it harder for him to get anything from the kid. Beating it out is not an option, so how about trying to reset things? The kid's tense and Garu is sure he was just buying for time when he asked that question to him. Smart, but no one will come unless Garu lets them know of him being with the boy. Still, not a bad move from the kid, but Garu won't get anything from the brat if they're on bad terms. Guess resetting things won't be much of a hustle, not like there are other things I could do. With a sigh, Garu raised both his arms. All right. I'll tell you what I want, brat. But how about we get things clear first? How about it? Garu asked as he gave a bit of space for the kid, giving him some breathing room. Sure. Kota answered, making Garu smile a bit in a devilish grin. Who knew it, I was great with kids? Garu inwardly laughs as he disregards the terrified face of the kid while staring at him. Clapping his hands together, Garu then slowly lowered his body a bit, reaching his eye level with the kid. Well then, first things first. No one's coming, not unless I let them. So instead of trying to buy some time for no one, how about loosening up first, kid? That statement from Garu made Kota freeze even more. He knew about Kota's plan to buy time, but it wasn't that which made Kota sweat in fear. Rather, it was about Garu knowing that no one will come for him, as by his words. Unless he lets them, there may no longer be a chance nor hope for Kota to escape this conundrum. He should have listened and stayed with the two, but it's his fault now that he's in this kind of situation. Noticing the kid's demeanor change once more into a freeze, Garu realized the reason for this. He didn't mean to sound threatening when he told about no one coming. Rather, it should be best for the kid to take away that thought that someone will come. The kid will be too busy thinking of ways to prolong their time together in hopes of a non-existent savior, and would most certainly not give much attention to detail once they talk. But Garu guessed he went it the wrong way. With another sigh, Garu flicked Kota's forehead once more, making the kid snap back to reality. How about we reset things? You shouldn't be too tense. I'm not here to hurt you. Garu teased a bit, but soon after, looked at Kota in all seriousness. At least, not in a way that you would think. Kota gulped at that. I know your name. Kota, as you say. So how about I tell you mine? Name's Garu, kid. Garu held his hand towards Kota, gesturing for a handshake. Garu, why you're lying? Kota said as he reluctantly tried to raise his hand to shake with Garu's. Garu, on the other hand, raised a brow at what the kid said. What do you mean by lying? Do you by chance know who I am? Bingo, as a deafening silence came forth. It seems things will turn for the better with the hunter this time, as Kota tried to breathe from the pressure that kept on building up and up just by talking with Garu. With a gulp, I kinda know who you are. You're that kid T that ran away during the UA festival. You're Midoriya Izuku. Kota finally yelled out his voice, as a bit of contempt was filled with his words. This in turn. Garu grinned. So that's the name of this body I'm in? Midoriya Izuku. Strange. 2 names instead of 1. Garu then stood up and moved around a bit and took a certain globe he was looking at earlier. Well, if that's the case, then call me whatever you like, kid, but Garu is what I would rather prefer. The hunter then looked at the kid with sharp eyes as it made the young child shiver from head to toe. Jay, just what do you want from me? Koda asked once again, but now, with no intention to buy time, only to truly know what Garu wants with him. No one's coming now, so at least, before anything happens with him, Koda wants to know what this person, Garu, wants with him. Nothing in particular, kid, other than this. Holding the globe by one hand, Garu had shown what he wanted to know. Due to certain circumstances, I need you to answer me with my questions. They aren't that complicated, and you'll know more than me. Heck, they would even sound dumb once I ask, but just tell me about this world. Ending with those words, Koda was only left with bafflement and confusion. Just what the hell does this Garu want from him? Why ask such a stupid question? Just what in the hell? Hours went by as slowly. Koda finally understood what Garu meant. Well, somewhat. There was a feeling that he was only given half-truth by the man himself, but he can't risk asking about it. Apparently, as Garu said, he lost his memories during that bout with the heroes during the festival. Koda finds it hard to believe, but as soon as he questioned about what Garu knows prior to those events, it seems to be likely. To Koda's case at least. With Garu's case, he was in fact lying to some degree, using the loss of memory act to get the information he needs. Plus, if he ever tells the kid he's actually from a different world, it'll just sound that he's crazy. So all in all, telling the truth is basically telling a lie that none would believe, even though it is in fact the truth. Anyhow, going back to what they were talking about with each other, Garu began to take note of what world he has been put into. A world where multiple continents exist. A world where people became heroes, but not through hard work unlike those in his world, but through the acquisition of these so-called quirks. It actually pissed Garu off learning of the history of quirks and how it became a staple for one to be recognized as a hero, or to be recognized at all. Fucking piss-worthy of a rule if you ask me. Garu internally said as just the thought that one couldn't be a hero, even though he hates heroes. The thought that one couldn't just because they were born without a quirk. It pisses him off so much that so what? If one doesn't have a quirk, that doesn't mean one is worthless. Garu, for example, worked himself to the bone just to be able to do what he can back when he was still himself. And look, he doesn't even have a quirk. So what reason is there for one to be told to become something insignificant, just cause of one's own lackness of quirk? Truly, it pissed Garu to no ends, making sure that he'll beat up even those in the government that forced this thought on these people. He could already imagine just how many people out there, 20% to be exact, are either forced to accept such a society or are looked down upon by the majority, made to be the useless bunch in a basket full of hypocrisy. Ugh, Garu couldn't accept it. For such a society to exist, it's even worse compared to his original world. At least there, people aren't relying on having quirks. Rather, it's all up to the person to get the power to become something he or she wants to become. So, fuck the society that builds upon this stupid idea that by having a quirk, only then it will give someone worth. Fuck it all to hell. Calming down his mind, Garu just sat on the sofa he saw earlier on. Koda, on the other hand, seems to be at ease now. Or maybe it was because by the time they were talking about quirks and its nonsense, they had a bit of a talk. The kid had subconsciously told his story, a story in which tackles the stupidity that having quirks can define one's worth, the stupidity of becoming a hero. It's all because of this system, because of this thought that one should become a hero if a person has the necessary quirk to become one. If it wasn't for that, then maybe, just maybe, his parents would still be alive. Koda didn't realize it, but he ended up crying as he told that story, as he remembered the stupidity of his own parents and how they should have not just met at all in the beginning, just to have him born into existence. That feeling of being left alone and being forced to accept that fact. It's stupid, and he hated it as well as his parents for leaving him, until Garu stopped him from cursing more and more about his own flesh and blood. Enough, Garu said at that time, as he looked in all seriousness towards Koda. You can blame the society and their concept of heroes for all I care, but kid, don't blame it all on your parents. You're correct, they shouldn't have made you, especially because they're both heroes. They should know by then that being a hero has its problems. One of them is that they'll end up dying in the field sooner or later. So you're correct on that, but to put it all on them. Kid, blame it on the society, blame it on the concept of heroes. Your parents were already doomed from the start, as you have told me. Even at a young age, you people were already given the thoughts of becoming a hero, even though such a luxury, such a thought isn't for everyone. And your parents are one of those casualties. They became heroes, not because they're suitable for it, no. In my eyes, they became heroes because it was the society that decided that. They became heroes even though they don't have the power or strength to even carry the burden of becoming one. And again, as I see it, it seems that most of the heroes in existence here are the same. Worthless, good-for-nothing heroes that were given the title. They did not even earn it. Rather, it was forced upon them. So know whom you're putting your blame, kid. It isn't your parents. It's not even your fault. It's the society you live in. It's the people that forced this false sense of thought in your minds. It's the concept of becoming a hero, which should be the thing you should blame. So kid, enough with the self-pity. Enough with the loath towards your parents. How about standing up for once? How about doing something about it, rather than sulking on their deaths? Show your worth, and make sure that things like this never happen again. That's what you want, right? Tell me, Koda. Silence. But aren't you the same? You have the quirk to be a her dash. Koda was stopped mid-sentence as Garu looked at him with great intensity, that he might end up getting hit or something. But it didn't matter what he thinks. Koda still got a good hit on the head from Garu. It was not that strong, but Koda could feel the resentment of Garu with just the thought of becoming a hero. Shut it, Garu grumbled as he continued his words. Whoever that kid was before me, forget about that fool. And for one, I'm sure as hell don't feel nor have any of those BS called quirks. So on hereforth, don't lump me with those hypocrites. Understood, kid? I understood, sir. Koda bowed his head a little from Garu's sermon, but not without having a small smile after it. All that was said that day, Koda took it into heart, and that's why he was at ease. As someone finally gave him the hard truth, the answers to his questions, the goal he needed to achieve in the end. So in all sense, for Koda, Garu was welcomed wholly. The sun is lifting, and soon it'll be too dark and dangerous for the boy to leave his secret place, so he bid his farewell to Garu and promised not to tell a soul about him. Garu, sensing neither ill will nor lie from Koda, let him be as the kid went down the mountainside then back towards the dorm/camp. What a day! Garu sighed as it drained him a bit on learning about the world he's in. For it looks like it'll take more than fear to make these fools see his truth. He might need to strike the core of these society's beliefs to make them realize how inane such a system is. Not just the heroes, but this world's governments too will be my enemies. Troublesome. With another sigh, Garu went out of the makeshift boy's cave and went back to his own area, killing a bear along the way as he cooked it once he reached his humble abode, taking a rest and then continuing his training for another day. The night was silent that day as Garu fell to deep sleep. Garu, an old rasp voice called out. It was familiar. Morning came as a drop of tear fell from Garu's eye, him not realizing what it meant. The hunter just shrugs it off as he went back to his training ground. But it seems a surprise came along as he reached his place. Ah, kid. Koda. Quite surprising that you're here. So, what do you want? Garu asked as the boy was just standing there looking at him as if he was determined to say something. I want you to train me, Koda sheepishly asked. What? Of course, Garu had no idea why this kid would even ask something like that towards him. Was it something he said yesterday? Or maybe something else? I'm not a teacher, kid, nor a babysitter. Ask someone else. No, Koda yelled, surprising Garu. There is no someone else. I'll rather die than train with a hero, the kid reasoned out. Then why me? What gave you the idea to ask me to train you? Garu was truly concerned about why. Like, no kid would even ask for such, especially that the kid he's talking with already knew that he was being hunted. So why risk it? Yesterday, you told me to show my worth, to become something that I choose to be, to make sure nothing like what happened to my parents happened to anyone ever again. That's why. Koda was losing air as if it was humiliating to say his reasons, but Garu was a bit moved from his words. Only a tiny bit. Heh. You got guts, kid. Koda. After a moment of thinking, Garu just sighed. The kid was determined, and it seems he won't be accepting no for an answer, no matter what. Fine. I'll teach you, but kid, as I told you before, I'm no teacher. So after teaching you only the basics, I'll leave you on your own. Find your own strength yourself. Got it. Got it, Koda answered. A few hours went by. Haha, is that all you got, kid? Garu mockingly said as already. Koda was gasping for air from the basic routine that's a prerequisite to even try and do the basic moves of Rijui Gansai Ken. But it's not bad either. Maybe a few more months you'll be able to finish the routine without a sweat. Garu proclaimed as he carried the broken and tired body of Koda. The kid was practically aching all over, but it seems he will not back out as Garu sees it. Carrying the young boy back to his cave of solitude, Garu lay the kid on the sofa, giving the kid a well-earned rest. If you plan to train with me, kid, how about jogging every morning first? Build your stamina and things would be simpler. I'll change your training for a bit. We'll do it gradually. What do you mean by changing my training? Making it gradual? Did you really plan for me to do advanced training from the start? Koda questioned in pain as he tried to wrap his mind around the thought of being given an advanced level of training. Nope, that training was what an old geezer made me do back then as a child. I did it, but it seems I'm a special case. Garu nonchalantly answered, which may or may not widen the eyes of a certain young boy resting on a sofa. Then what about me? Does that mean I'm just weak? Koda frantically asked Garu for answers, but it only earned him a shrug from the hunter. Depends on you, kid. Either accept that as your limit or push through it. It'll always be up to you to decide. Garu didn't really bother to try and answer that question seriously. If you want to be stronger, then just be stronger. Work for it. He doesn't need to tell anybody about that, even for the kid. If Koda realizes that, then only then shall he achieve what Garu had. Damn, Koda cursed silently, thinking of what may come after all of this. Plus, there's another problem he has yet to tell about towards Garu. Hey, sensei. Just Garu, kid, until you learn how to do the basics. Maybe I'll let you call me your teacher, but until then. Garu. Okay. Well, Garu-san, there's one thing I wanted to talk to you about. I just didn't come here to ask for you to train me. Rather, I have a confession to make. Oh, and what would that be? You finally ratted me out? They could try, but they won't stand a chance. And you should run now if that's the case. Garu half-jokingly said. He knew the kid won't do such a thing, but it's still better to be prepared. No, nothing like that. Koda shook both his hands and head on that thought. It's just, will I be able to improve with this training and all? I don't really have much time here, to be honest. My cousin and her team, well, if you're worried about that, don't be. You could still train in your home. Again, it's up to you in the end. It doesn't really matter to me. Just do the training. Change it if you must. Just be certain to keep breaking through your limits, and you'll be better off than the rest. Garu shrugged as he was about to make his way outside and train on his own. Why, you're right. Koda was about to left behind as Garu walked towards the exit of his secret hideout. Not wanting to be unable to say what he wanted to say, Koda tried to stand up from the sofa as he called yet again towards Garu-hey, Garu-san. Earning his attention once more, Garu looked at the kid holding himself up with the use of the sofa. What is it this time? You hate heroes, right? A rather stupid question this time. Koda already knew about that, but it seems he wants to be sure of it. You could say that, why? Garu answered and questioned it. Haven't they already talked about this a day before? Or is it just now that the kid realized who and what kind of a person he's talking with? My cousin, Sosaki Shino or Mandalay as per her hero name. Will you? And that where Garu connected the dots. The kid was afraid if he will hunt his cousin too. That's up for her to decide, kid. Garu's answer was cold and heavy. It seems that even if she was the kid's cousin and only living relative, if she ever tries to go against his way, Garu will spare no one. Koda can't help but gulp at such a response. Then, maybe at least, be gentle with her, please? Don't kill her. I beg you. Koda pleaded. If asking for his cousin's safety from his sensei's wrath and crusade against heroes was not an option, then at least ensuring her health would be more than enough. Silence continued as Garu turned his back from Koda, leaving him, but not before giving the following words. We'll see, kid, we'll see. He ended. Days went by as Koda slowly but surely progressed more and more. His training with Garu was proving fruitful, At the same time, though, it was lacking. Kota couldn't put it into words, but Garu does know that he has a quirk, weak as it may, but he still has one, and yet, all the training he's been doing was more grounded with the physical aspects of his being. So, it made Kota a bit worried. If he were to believe Garu had lost his memories after the UA festival, which he somewhat does, even though Garu himself told about not having a quirk, it's still unbelievable for the kid to rationalize that it's true. At first, Kota just thought Garu doesn't really realize it, that he has a quirk, but as the days goes by with him, slowly, but surely, it seems to be truer by day. Or he may be wrong, but his gut feeling isn't giving any doubt. Should I ask him again? Just to be sure. Kota was still trying to cope with the possibility of one not having quirks that can go toe-to-toe with pro heroes, but it still proves to be unlikely. Maybe, without realizing it, Garu has been using his quirk all along? I mean, how else could he destroy a boulder in one fell swoop, as well as cutting it in a perfect spherical motion? It's just too unbelievable, but believable at the same time. Why believable? Well, Garu's words to him speak in volumes in itself. Unlike with those other people around him, Kota is certain Garu's words have more weight and meaning compared to those hypocrites. Still, will it hurt to ask? Garu-san, I have a question to ask. Kota went towards Garu as he was in a state of pure focus, his form not even budging from the strain of keeping it still for hours on end. Are you done with your training? Garu wanted to know first of that, because if the kid was not done yet with his training, then there is no sense in talking with him. Why yes, kind-slash. Then go back to it. Garu instantly cut Kota off as he began to move from his spot, striking on something, an invisible opponent, which only Garu could see. But this is important. Please hear me out. Kota was now treading on thin ice as he still tries to ask for a time to talk with Garu. Tisk. Getting bothered while he was fighting with an imaginary figure, Garu stopped and turned to the little brat, giving all ears to what he's about to say. Get on with it, he grumbled. Gathering all his strength and will to ask such a stupid question, Kota finally said it. Will you ever give me training with my quirk? You're what? Garu almost spat at the kid's words. Just what the hell was he thinking? Already seeing Garu's reaction, Kota became a bit sheepish as he continued on. USC. Massaging his temple, Garu just held his hand towards Kota, signaling him to stop. Stop. I told you before, kid. I don't have a quirk, and you don't need your quirk to do what you want to achieve your goal. So if that's the only thing you have to say, then end it there. Just go back and finish your damn training. I am sorry. Kota looked down after that. Don't be sorry, be better. Garu tried to shrug off the stupidity of such a question. The kid better be better. If not, who knows what he would do to the kid's noggin. Then, I'll go back, but before that. Still feeling a bit brave, Kota dared to speak once more, earning some tick marks on Garu. What now? In a few more days. My cousin and her team will also be training other teens here. They're just like you. From UA High. With that revelation, things just became interesting as the silence made it clear that Garu was intrigued by what the kid just said. I think seeing them would jog your memories a bit, Garu-san. That's all. Ending it at that, Kota went back to his training, leaving Garu on his own, now thinking of what he'll do once he gets to meet the classmates of what this original body used to have before he took over. A few more days went by. Kota did not come back this time. Kid said it would be better that way for now. As he said to Garu, his cousin won't be allowing him to leave for that time being. Saying things like the mountains and forestry he goes through will be akin to a war zone sooner or later. Kota knew exactly what it meant. Basically, the whole area would be the training ground for the students. But for Garu, it would mostly be just a walk in a park, quite literally. Kota has no doubt if Garu were to ever meet one of his cousin's friend's quirk monsters, those rock figures, his sensei won't even sweat at taking care of it. As for the traps along the way, if he ever comes near the other side of the mountain, maybe he'll trigger one, but being his sensei and all, Kota cannot even fathom seeing a measly trap made for teens, even if his sensei was a teen, would be able to do anything towards him. So all in all, Garu was better off. Plus, by not being there with him on the other side of the mountain, Kota's cousin's friend, that blonde-haired teammate they have, won't need to send those rock monsters to keep an eye on him. Why so? Well, Tomoko-san, Ragdoll, will be far too busy taking tabs on the other students, so she may not be able to keep an eye on him. So yeah, that's also one reason why his cousin does not want him to leave this time on his own. Unless he wants a rock monster to follow him all around, which he does not want. What a day will it be for him, as already when he was introduced to the whole UA students that day. It already pissed him off how the lot of them act, as if they're already heroes. They aren't, they are just students in training, not heroes going on a trip to further themselves, which is still somewhat the same, but Koda would rather not think of such. The day was just annoying. It just makes him wonder, what is his sensei doing at the moment? Will Garu take a look at the other students? Or will he just stay on the other side, not risking being disturbed? Koda truly wonders. In Garu's case, it seems to be a good time to check out those other brats, but at the same time, as the sounds of destruction can be heard on the other side of his abode, this could also be a good time for him to sneak by the dorms where they're currently lodging. Who knows, he might find something interesting there, or a stone monster would randomly show up in Garu's field of view as it heads towards the sounds of destruction caused by the students on the far side of the mountain. Well, when in Rome, Garu snickered as he followed the giant rock monster towards where all the fun was. It didn't take long till Garu manages to have a look at the brats that this original body used to hang out with. Seeing a loudmouth blonde already screaming on the top of his lungs as the kid yells out, "Die! Shine!" towards another rock monster that was already there. Then an explosion came as the blonde pointed his hands towards the thing, somewhat reminiscent of a certain demon cyborg for Garu. Kid's got moves at least. Garu complimented the hot-headed teen, did a barrel roll once the explosion sent him flying, then doing a superhero landing once he reached the ground. I'll give that 8 out of 10 for effort in trying to look cool. Garu scored, but he was simply being sarcastic when he said that. Of course, he wasn't impressed. Why would he be? For all he sees are brats acting like heroes. Case in point, one of them actually went out of his damn way to look like one. In Garu's eyes, the brat was in a full armored suit, while some sort of engines, turbines, exhaust, or whatever the hell was on the teen's calves. The only thing that matters is that full armored brat suits more of the theme that a hero should look like that, ludicrous. Garu was simply not amused by it. Plus, the brat looks stupid in his eyes. They can play hero all they want, but the fact that they're having trouble with a dumb and slow rock monster that turns to soil once one damages it enough tells volumes of how weak they are. Take away their quirks, then what will that make them? Casualties, pointless casualties. Garu noted that in his mind as he continued on analyzing their quote-unquote training. Lackluster, that's the word that is best suited to call those students' training. There was no bloodshed, no threat, no nothing. If one were to train, there should be at least something that could give that person a challenge, and there should be risks involved in it. So what if they got hurt or knocked out by that big dumb rock monster, as Garu sees it, already from the start? That thing, that worthless slowpoke, wasn't there to kill those brats, rather to just test them. So much for giving a real-life demonstration of what truly is in the field. What's more, is that those brats seem to be taking it badly, which just further proves to Garu that they're weaklings. Though what Garu does not know is that because Todoroki and Midoriya are out of the picture, the powerhouse of Class 1A has significantly dropped to a degree that it's mostly Bakugo, Ida, and Tokoyami that's carrying the entire class. Going back at the lackluster training, it seems that even with the disadvantage of them only having a few reliable frontliners to take on the rock monsters, at least the rest of the worthless group is doing something to help. Basically being the support, as one of those students seems to be creating weaponry and equipment out of nothing, and then giving it out to other students that lack the means to damage those monsters. Better than not doing anything. Garu scoffed a bit as his verdict for the brats has been made. They're all not worth my time, Garu noted as he decided to just leave in. Midoriya. A voice of a girl suddenly spooked Garu, and yet, there was not even a sign of the said girl, other than her voice giving the hunter her general direction. He didn't even notice her. May it be that his attention was more focused on the other brats, or this invisible girl like a ghost is able to bypass Garu's senses. No, could she? Garu was baffled by this as his figure grew in front of the eyes of the girl, as if a monster was beginning to realize her existence, ready to choke the life out of her. This was not the intention of Garu, though, but in all honesty, even with Koda's case, any sane person would easily tremble and scream for help once they get a feeling of that dreadful aura that Garu seemingly radiates. It isn't his fault that he's one scary animal. It's just that his figure had already changed since the last time the public got a glimpse of him. For the invisible girl, or Hagakure, her name, the Midoriya she recalls was before the whole fiasco with Todoroki, Endeavor, and All Might. A teen with green hair, green eyes, and an ever-endearing smile when the topic goes towards the heroes. But this teen in front of her was none of that. A dark violet tint covered his hair instead of the vibrant green, while one of his eyes was like Ishido's, but more terrifying as she was certain if he tried, it could kill a person if he tries. His body, taller, more muscular, more refined, hardened, and scarred by what seems to be the fruit of intense training, while quite a few gauzes covered his hands and lower abdomen. The hands, in particular, Hagakure could clearly see even with the gauze covering it. His hands had stains of blood on its knuckles. May it be from his own flesh or something else entirely. She could only gulp as those same hands may give her the faith that Todoroki got. "Don't you dare scream." Garu ended the silence as he ordered her not to do anything rash. But to his dismay, "Du," she yelled out, causing even Garu to be in disbelief. Just what the hell was she thinking, and where did she get the courage to even yell right in front of Garu's gaze? Well, to answer that, let the entirety of Class 1A rushing forward where the voice came from be the answer, as Garu was even more surprised as the other brats clearly disregarded what they were doing earlier and just started to sprint in his direction. Did they plan this? The hunter questioned, as what he guessed was closer to the truth. In correlation to what happened to Todoroki, Shoto, as well as the sudden change in Midoriya, Izuku, Class 1A didn't just stand around and do nothing about it. Rather, they did the exact opposite. They made a plan that if they ever get to see or have a glimpse of Izuku Midoriya, they'll not just avenge Todoroki, but they also planned to save Midoriya from whoever was controlling him, using Izuku's hero name as the signal. Deku was the only word they need to know who and what exactly was there. That was their plan, and they properly trained for it. Why? Because if they aren't able to bring him back, then the confirmation from the authorities to eliminate the teen would commence. How did all this come to be? They questioned, but the answer came from a person in which shock even the number one hero himself. Night-Eye. A goal to achieve. Deku, Hagakure screamed out as her voice was heard by the entire class. Garu was rather baffled by what the girl did, as the sounds of footsteps rushed towards their location. The other students that heard her call, as Garu looked, sprinted towards them in a way that wasn't normal by any means. As none of them took the straight path, willingly at least, to see what the commotion is all about. Rather, as Garu sensed where some of them were going, the teens were forming a perimeter from the area he stood. Was this planned? The hunter questioned himself, as this same scenario is as familiar as his time with those A-class heroes that wanted to hunt him down, surrounding him and making sure he has no way out. Well, at least that was the plan. Before Hagakure could get away, as Garu was preoccupied discerning where her colleagues positioned themselves, she felt a cold-hardy grip hold on her shoulder as her being instantly lost strength to even move. What happened? Why can't I? Hagakure's mind panicked as the realization settled in. Midoriya, or Garu, held her in place with a vice grip. Having no intention to let her go nor even give her the chance to protect herself, Garu took her in closer to his figure as he switches his grip towards the back of her neck, then ever so slightly, raised her whole body up in front of him like a body shield. Garu himself didn't really need to do that part with the invisible girl, but seeing how from far away, another girl, the same one that gave weapons and equipment to the other students earlier on, had planned to shoot him with some kind of specialized bullet, his sight enabling him to see such a minute detail. It was better her than him. Even though he could just simply deflect it, Garu simply decided not to, as this was also a good way for him to see just what kind of quote-unquote heroes are these brats in the making of. For are they even worthy of such a title? The title of a hero. Do they even have the will to commit fully to this ideal? This commitment of what it truly means to be a hero? As this world these brats only know of is filled with a system made to distinguish what a hero should be, disregarding what it's actually meant to be, as disregarding the quirkless, the weak. Now, by the hands of Geru himself, these brats are now being taught a lesson unknown to them, a first-hand lesson on what it means to be a hero in the field. Or to be exact, what it means to be a hero in Geru's eyes. Would any of them even try and come at him now? Since he has a hostage, would they even dare? Would that girl shoot? Does she even have the will and gall to try? How about the others that had already taken their spots around the hunter? None of them seems to dare, as nothing came for a good silent minute. Until, "You're all hopeless," a voice said out loud as the whistling of air begun to fill the silent ambient. "Are you all just going to stand there and do nothing?" With his teeth gritting tightly together with fury in his eyes burning like a flame, from up above his voice came loud and clear. "If the lot of you plan to capture Deku at all cost, then why are you all just standing there and not doing anything?" The teen up above yelled once more, as he was now in a course directly going towards the hunter. "She's done for, and you all know it. So how about not wasting her sacrifice and do something about it?" The teen, now clear to the hunter's eyes. The same blonde he sarcastically belittled earlier on that was trying to look cool with his moves and landings, that loudmouth that he thought was all bark. Geru grinned as finally, at least, out of all the students present in the vicinity right before him, this kid, this spiky-haired blonde that's on a collision course straight towards him. Geru saw it in his eyes, the difference between him and other brats. The blonde, named as Bakugo Katsuki, out of all the other students with him, he was the only one that's different, as his eyes showed the will and determination to put Geru down for good. How could Geru even know of this by just a simple look? One has to wonder. Though, the answer to that is quite simple as it is. For unlike the rest that had fear in their eyes, doubt, and even uncertainty on what one must do, this brat that's about to strike Geru with all that he got has the same eyes as the ones the hunter is familiar of. The scornful eyes that made it clear to him on what he was meant to be. The eyes that only saw of him as a monster, a threat in which must be eliminated at all cost, for a hero that can't muster up the courage and will to do so. At least in Geru's original world, the hardest choices requires the strongest of wills, a quote in which perfectly fits the blonde brat's scenario currently. As the world this brat has lived in all his life, just to compare it to the hunter's own. No matter how much you look at it, the world where Geru used to live in, a cursed place if one truly thinks about it. There, it only needs one small mistake, one lapse of judgment that decides the lives of many. Especially in scenarios involving monsters, as unlike with the world of these brats acting like heroes, a true hero's job in Geru's old world was to deal with monsters, eliminating them as swiftly as possible. For to be at war against beings capable of decimating country-sized cities in a matter of seconds is a whole different ballpark compared to capturing and arresting villains. As in Geru's eyes, the heroes here are green, though not in a way to belittle them, but in a way that compared to what he is used to seeing, especially in his world. None of these pro-heroes or even these brats would make it in a week or so in the brutality that casually happens to his universe. Millions dead in a blink of an eye, multiple whole country-sized cities getting wiped off from the face of the earth with a single swipe, the daily occurrence of monsters massacring en masses, freaks of nature claiming to be kings, even king aliens invading their world. All of those are more or less just mundane things that people like Geru were forced to deal with. And so the heroes as well as the majority of the populace in his world accepted that kind of normalcy. As one day they would all die, and the chances are, it would be by a monster. So again, the heroes, heck, even the ordinary civilians that Geru knew from his world needed a strong enough will to survive on such a planet, and an even stronger conviction to stay alive and fight for another day, no matter how much it is taken away from them. Just to see those eyes of complete acceptance on what must be done, the eyes of which that consider Geru not as a human, but as a monster, just like those of his own world. To see them in that hot-headed brat, Geru could only chuckle. "Well, I guess not all of you are green," Geru said as he hastily put the invisible girl down to his side, covering her from what's to come. The hunter raised his left arm towards the brat in excitement, while his right lowered towards the side of his abdomen, forming a stance while his legs readied for impact. Garu was left with anticipation and excitement as the brat came nearer by the moment. Howitzer impact. Bakugo yelled as his body begun to move in a circular motion, forming a tornado in the process, which then funnels up the oxygen around him as fuel to his attack. This move was one of Bakugo's strongest attacks, which if it hits its target, the force it would generate is comparable to an actual missile going at supersonic speeds. And yet, the hunter right before him was just chuckling in slight amusement on his figure. Aiming his right hand towards Garu, and without a moment of hesitation, an explosion big enough to engulf an area of 100 meters squared burned to ashes. Bakugo, Garu, and Hagakure were at the epicenter of such destruction, which made the other students shocked and terrified of what their fellow classmate had done. "Is he insane?" Ida yelled out as the thought reciprocated with the rest of the class, for it truly had shocked them all that Bakugo was willing to go to such lengths in taking Midoriya down, even if it causes his and other people's lives. They flinch at the thought of what may come after such an assault, for the black smog and smoke covered the area where the three were located. Hagakure, did she even survive such a blast? For she isn't one of the most durable types of quirk users in their class. How about Bakugo? It engulfed him as well. But most important of all, the main target of such a gruesome attack, Midoriya. This wasn't the plan. Ida said with disbelief. The same goes with the rest. Yes, they knew it would take a lot to subdue Midoriya, especially with the villain that they think is controlling the said teen. They were all prepared to get bruised and even beaten to a pulp if one of them is unlucky, just so that they can prevent any more further damage that villain could do with the body of Midoriya. But not like this. They didn't mean to have a sacrifice just to stop him, for that's exactly the reason why they planned this in the first place, for no one to get killed in the end. Midoriya, because of the person they think that's controlling him, one of the top brass in the hero society in Japan, Sir Nightai, has seen a vision that would cause unspeakable terror if Midoriya was not put to a stop, was not put down permanently. An ultimatum that even on the sidelines, unknown to most of the public eye, all might plead for such a drastic measure to be stopped, but never again said Nightai that he would let such fate to happen, not any more like with what happened to his own mentor, his own hero, All Might himself. It took about a minute of pure silence that echoed all throughout for the blackened smog and smoke to dissipate, but the image that came out of it was both a blessing and a curse. There Garu stood as he held the broken arm of Bakugo. Bones fractured and even penetrated out of the skin, reminiscent of the first A-class hero Garu had fodderized when he proclaimed the start of his hero hunt. But unlike that brute, Bakugo's body couldn't even handle such amount of force going back at him, and so, this happened. Exhausted, bleeding, and even almost near death's door, Bakugo was experiencing a different kind of pain. For the moment he reached his goal, his enemy, Garu met it with his own. At that moment of time, Garu launched his right fist straight towards Bakugo's blow. The problem was when it landed, the hunter was only left with disappointment, as even with all the build-up the hot-headed brat made to strengthen his attack, it was completely negated with little to no effort by the force of Garu's punch. When his fist hit the palm of the blonde teen, the explosion was redirected in a way that it went outside its main target, hence why it engulfed Bakugo as well, but not just that. When Garu's fist made its mark, to his dismay, it's made clear to him the truth of this world. They can dish out such amount of force, but they can't even take it. Garu scorned as the brat's arm got mangled to bits when it met the hunter's fist. And so, that led to that very moment where the students were left with mixed emotions of horror and relief. Horrified of what had happened to Bakugo, but relieved that the three didn't end up dead by such an attack. Heh. Garu sighed as he let go of Bakugo's broken arm. Said teen fell like a rag doll as his own attack was reflected back to him. His body trembled in pain and suffering. His right arm may never be what it used to be after all this, while definitely, his entire body is covered with first to second degree burns, as well as internal bleeding from the impact. Bakugo could only thank for once in his life that the support team of UA High made due to his requirements on his hero costume. to be capable to block most of his own self-inflicted damage. But still, there was a limit to this, and that limit was met when he exchanged blows with the monster in front of him. D-damn. Inyoyu. Bakugo tried to speak out his anger, but Geru only looked at him with pity, making the hot-headed teen yell internally, as that look didn't just make him even angrier, but it also pained him with the realization of his own failure, his own weakness to even compare to his once-upon-a-time friend. He should have already guessed this would have happened, the same with the rest, but they were simply blinded by the insanity of it all. They just simply couldn't believe it at that time, as well as they made excuses right after, excuses that they shouldn't have, especially with all the red flags that it had given them. For what candle can they even hold against the sun that is All Might? And in that, because All Might had already fought with this monster in front of him, what more can he and the rest do? It was truly pitiful. In what kind of scenario did they even think they could win this at all? Bakugo was the only one that had this thought close in mind, and it was him that confirmed it firsthand. They were all fools, and he knew it. They were all clinging in a false hope even from the start, and Bakugo, he knew it once more. Maybe it was because of pride that he didn't wake the other to this truth, or maybe it was guilt. He doesn't really know anymore, for it's clear as day now. He should have told his mind way back when the class half-assed thought of saving Midoriya, for there was no longer that kid he once knew. Only a monster remained, and now, because of his own failure as well, the rest of the class will realize this soon enough. You're all weak, Geru said as he took Bakugo by the collar, and the same goes with Hagakure, and then thrown the two towards their classmates, the latter catching them in bafflement. If all of you here are training to become heroes, don't, Geru told out loud for the whole class to hear. None of you will make it, no matter how much I look at it. So better quit while you brats are all ahead, or suffer the same fate as your friend over there. Geru pointed at Bakugo as he turned his back from the rest of the class, making the students even more baffled and confused with the hunter's action. But before Geru could have left, another voice yelled out, "Just what the hell are you planning?" The brat with full armored support armor was the source of this, as Geru looked. It was Ida, the rather stupid-looking one in the hunter's eyes. Midoriya, I don't know who the hell you are, but just what are you planning to do to Midoriya's body? Villain. Ida sneered at Geru with contempt. Geru, though, just simply walked away as it irritated the armor-clad teen even more, while the rest, on the other hand, were about to do something stupid. Tokoyami, Shiro, Sato, Ojiro, and Kirishima were about to rush the hunter while his back was turned, but to the teen's dismay, their entire bodies shook to its core as they were stopped dead center from their tracks. It's as if their bodies refused to move an inch as an ever-menacing aura choked their being. How could such a thing happen? They can't really tell, but the answer to it, maybe it's what the hunter had told just before the rush could reach him. Absolute evil. Geru answered Ida's question, as the other students that were in the middle of rushing him were put to a stop. The hunter's answer stopped any form of retaliation from the rest of the class. That's my answer, Geru confirmed, but his tone was of uncertainty. Was that really what he wanted? His current being doesn't know fully, but in another time, another world where he became a true monster. That was his answer to a certain caped Baldy. So for this Geru, it kind of felt right? Does it? The hunter's mind was then filled with another question to oneself, a question he may need to meditate once more if he's given the time, but for now, with one last look at the pitiful excuse of heroes in training right before him, he took a breath. They're almost here, Geru thought as just at the backs of the frozen brats, a pro-hero came in rushing. Tiger was the pro-hero's name, but before he could reach Geru by the neck, the hunter in a fluid movement raised his arms as he breathed out. He then smashed the ground with a tremendous amount of force, reminiscent of the time he fought against the 3S-class heroes, just before his death by his own master. The ground shook and then suddenly, as if a miniature volcano was created, the soil and bedrock beneath crumbled and rushed towards the surface, making an explosion of earth and dust as it's thrown as high as the mountain's peaks. The pro-hero, same as the students, were only left with widened eyes as the shockwave from it scattered them from all over the place, some even getting buried by the debris. Not killing them. Rather, knocking most in the vicinity out as Garu was long gone. Time went by as the members of the wild pussy cats tend to the students, while a hunter at the other side of the mountain was left in disappointment, as well as conflict on to his goal. Absolute evil. That's what I said, right? Garu questioned to no one but himself as the sun's light nears its end while the moonlit sky will soon take its place. This world which the hunter is in is truly different than his own, as he's not even sure if it's worth his time anymore. The heroes, as far as he's concerned, are weak, but it'll be both arrogant and ignorant of him to generalize as such, and yet, his senses told him otherwise. Maybe it's because of the body of the boy he's in. Garu may not receive any of the memories of the previous owner of the body, but the body itself may recall. And maybe, basing on that, it knows the heroes from this world cannot even compare to his. Or so Garu thinks. What am I really planning? What's my goal? Why was I given another chance to live? Those were the questions Garu had been thinking ever since he learned that he had died from the hand of his own master. Questions that he had also disregarded when it pissed him off that he died before reaching his original goal. And again he gave the same answer. You're such a pain, old man. Calming himself once more, Garu meditated as night fully took hold of the sky above. Yes, I did. Garu finally answered the first question he said to himself during that day. Absolute evil. Once more he reminded himself as he stood up from his meditation. I need to get back, Garu told, as it was now time for him to leave this place. To change this world, I must be more. He ended as he walked towards his makeshift abode, there, finding a large enough boulder for that kid to see, if said child ever comes back, that is. Garu wrote his farewell. See ya, kid. May you achieve your own goal against this kind of society you live in. Let's just hope you won't become like one of those heroes this world creates. Or I'll hunt you down. Garu chuckled a bit on that last part of his message, but he knows the kid won't do something as stupid. For the weeks he had been with the kid, he's certain the kid would no longer wish to be one. He'll be different, Garu assured to himself as he walked away during the dead of night, never to be seen in that mountainous area once more, for now. As from the shadows neath the light of the moon, two figures finally found the hunter they've been looking for months on end. That kid would be of use to us. Hirojiri, send the others to take care of that. It's time to play a few of our cards with this monster. Raspily said by the man-child himself, Shigaraki. The League of Villain will soon make their move. Morning came and the product of Class 1A's failure is laid to be seen. Though most of them made it out with only bits of bruises and cuts caused by the earth beneath breaking by the force of Midoriya's attack, there were still a few of the class that got it worse. Blaming it all in their inability to act against Midoriya's might, Ida along with the rest of the class can only look down at themselves as they were all put to rest that day, but it was only them. For a certain blonde, even against the words of the doctors that rushed towards their camp, aiding them, Bakugo was currently pushing himself not to rest and secretly moving away from the eyes of his companions, wanting only solitude to himself. The paramedics that also came along with the doctors were shocked to learn that the teen was not in his room resting, nor anywhere in the dorm/camp they're in. They could have asked for one of the pro heroes there, Ragdoll for example. But the problem was, she along with the other pro heroes such as Mandalay, Pixie Bob, and Eraserhead was currently away looking for any signs of where Midoriya was, for they think the kid wouldn't get that far. Leaving only a few heroes left, one of them is Tiger, which was injured a tad bit more because of being near the epicenter of Midoriya's shocking feat for his eyes. The other one would be Vlad, but he too was busy, making sure his class wouldn't meet the same fate. It would seem not much could be done in finding the teen with the most injured state out of the rest. They only hope as they search the area, the teen would lay down a tree and rest for his own good. He should know when to stop and rest, as once they find him, they will put the teen back to bed rest. And so, that's how Bakugo was left to his own, walking haggardly as his body was still feeling the stress and exhaustion it undertook right after the on-the-spot first aid and surgery that was done to him yesterday that morning. Said surgery was for his right arm, as then and there, it was no longer of use. When the paramedics came and looked upon his injuries, they were only filled with dread as the teen's arm may no longer be usable for the coming years. Healing quirks from famous doctors may help, But the problem was the damage that blonde teen's right arm took that day against Midoriya turned out to be reminiscent of what a half-and-half classmate of his endured as well. Bakugo's palm, or the lack of it, was the first thing that caught their eyes. The bones that made up the hand's palm were completely shattered by the amount of force it had received, only leaving the fingers intact. So if one were to look at the teen's hand, it's as if having 5 rigid extrusions coming out of a jelly-like material as its core. Or should one say, the flesh of a palm turned mush as skin was the only thing holding it in place along with the extrusion known as its fingers. Just by looking at it during that time, it was clear the owner of the hand was feeling pure agonizing pain. And that's just the start of it. The teen's arm was next. And at that point on, let's just say it truly looked the same with that other teen that met their fellow classmates' wrath. As the arm was left broken, shattered, and some even turned to pulverized mush, while the majority of it was bent to a pretzel as the bones connecting each part of the arm zig and zag, while some of it even penetrating out of flesh and skin. Just what could they even do at that point? Well, 2 options came. The first, amputation. The second, pray that the healing quirks of the doctors that came along would help with the teen's arm as they made do with surgery, doing their best to desperately save the boy's arm from an option that would leave him with 3 limbs instead of 4. After that, here we are. Bakugo, through his sheer will and hard-headedness, continued to walk away from the camp. Why though? What was the point of him being this rash and risking his own health for no apparent cause? Well, the reason is quite simple for the blonde teen. He cannot rest. Not now, not ever. After his fight against that monster that took his once-in-a-time friend, he knew to himself that he just couldn't let that thing go, let it become stronger. Stronger than him. For there was no mistaking it. When Bakugo saw the body of Midoriya that time, it wasn't the same with the one that he knew. It was refined, strengthened, and even more than that, tuned into a body capable of decimating through heroes and villains alike. Bakugo knew of this for some reason, as when his palm connected to the fist of the monster he fought, a vision came.